Okay, great. Okay, have a seat as an instructor. Okay, one of the concerns you should have as an instructor and student is you always want to be able to control your attacker. Okay, and that means you have to have control over where your attacker ends up. Okay, and what I've seen a lot, not just unique to Budoshin Jujitsu, but people throw a person from that direction, or go running after him and try to do a submission. Okay, or they do a hand throw, and he ends up clear over there, and they're stretched out, running over to him to keep up with him so they can do the submission. Okay, part of this is footwork. Part of it is your body posture, position, rotation, etc. The other part is that in many situations, we give the students too much room to work in. Okay, now, on the one hand, we like to give them all the room they could have. Ideally, if we had only one team on all of this mat, that would be the ideally safe position, except they'd probably be in one corner, depending upon their level of self-confidence. Okay. And the problem is because we give them so much room, because we're concerned about their safety, they don't learn how to control their mat space. Okay. And Seki was big on this, and when I learned the art of that when I was working, this other guy and I would practice about 6 to 8 hours a week in a local recreation center, and they had 2 of these mats, and that was it. And we learned to do everything. Tomonagi, uki-otoshi, anything that you can find was done on these 2 mats, or you developed an appreciation for these 2 mats. Because you missed. Okay? And so very quickly we learned where we had to be to throw the person or do any technique we want to so that the uke would land on the mat. And in the process, you also discover where your uke is going to end up, because you don't want to have to go after him. You want him to be right at your feet so that you can just finish him off, because you never want to chase after an attacker. Because what does that look like on the street? It looks like you are the attacker. Okay, it's an aggressive move. And you don't want to look aggressive. You're the one that's been attacked, not him. Okay, so that's part of it. Location, 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 which is also a real estate term, is why this section is taught like this. Okay, or named is because you always want to be aware of where your attacker is once you've thrown him or taken him down, and you do, for the most part, have absolute control. Another reason why you tend to have problems controlling your attackers is because you are too nice to them. And I'm serious, okay, I know you want to be gentle with your opponent, okay, and so you tend to go easy on the technique because you sense them resisting, and they also need to learn that they need to stay in this area and they need to adjust themselves so that you don't have to use additional effort or energy to put them into this area, because it is going to be more uncomfortable for them, okay, so they have to be a little cooperative. The outshot of this is that you begin to learn what a technique feels like if your uke is cooperating with you and you can get your technique done in this close area around you. Okay? And then you apply it, your body memorizes that, and then you just, if you get on the street, that's where you function. It won't work as neatly on the street because the guy doesn't know all these rules on how to protect himself. But your attacker will end up closer to you so that you can do whatever you want to do to him. Use your submission or finishing strike or hit or whatever it is. Okay? You want him close to you again so that you don't have to go after him. So, let's see, who do I want to be my uke for this one? I'm talking about this one. Who wants to tell me how I have fire? Sure, it's nice and Mark to volunteer, but you're probably safe for the rest of the day. Okay, and we're going to start off with something really simple, okay? Koshinagi, hip throw, okay? Because it's the easiest, it and the hand throw are probably the two easiest ones to teach this concept from. Okay, so I don't care what his attack is. I don't care whether it's Ito Tsunagi, Roto Tsunagi, Obinagi, Kubi, or however you grab him, that's irrelevant. Okay, what you want to end up doing is having him land at your feet. Okay, it's not a hard concept. Okay, it's not hard to teach. So, to do this, pardon, switch position? Okay, to do this, get your face in there. Okay, that's why. But he has to put the sun shield on because there's a reflection. But anyway, what you have to realize is that a hip throw has probably 90–95% of the techniques in Jiu-Jitsu, regardless of style, are all rotational techniques. They all work in a circle, which means you have your y-axis. I know all of you have read my advanced Jiu-Jitsu book, so I'm not going to go into it twice. But there's a y-axis, and you need to get your y-axis close as possible to his y-axis. You rotate on your y-axis, and that's how the technique works. You face his y-axis, you absorb his ki, go down, you go boom. Okay, so go down, go boom part. Okay, so he's going to come in. Punch. Okay, you're going to block. Okay, you're going to come in. Okay, this is the start of the rotation here. I'm simply going to come in. I want him to land right there. Okay, I'm not going to throw him outwards. I'm not going to throw him that way. And the way I get him to land right here is because I continue this rotation and I turn to my left. And oh my God, there he is. Okay. The reason people don't end up here is because students have a tendency to pull forward, which is rough on their back. They pull outward. They pull away from the body. They're trying to extend out. And what you want to do, this is a circle. Okay. You come in, you're here, you just work a circle. Okay, and the same concept applies for the hand throw. So what I want you to do, I know all of you do hip throw, Bushinagi, Tsunagi, whatever you want to call it. All I want you to do is get up a couple times, do a basic hip throw. You don't have to do it fast. I want this person to land right at your feet. Okay? And for new students, this is exceedingly challenging. Okay? But they've got to get the concept that they have to turn, and the technique is circular, not pulling. Okay? Or you are pulling it, but you're keeping it a tight circle. Okay? So, any questions on this? I want this person right at your feet. Okay? So the sign of defeat.
We're punting them.
I'm not sure what was wrong with that, but okay.
Are you a partner?
Pretty circle. One more.
Couple three. Some of the things that are encouraged, and this has to do with your footwork, and some of you, if you are taller than your opponent, this tends to be a problem. Okay. And part of your positioning is that you need to be in a balanced position when you're doing a throw. Okay. All this stuff is so basic, okay, but we tend to forget it as we progress in rank and as we're doing our techniques. Common mistakes students make. Okay, when they're coming in and we'll turn it. They come in, they're standing out like this. Okay, or this is the worst situation. I actually have had students, they come out and they try and go down this way, and they didn't realize this is not going to work because I can't. The knees aren't bending. Okay, okay, I'm stuck. What do I do now, Sensei? Okay, other people get clear out here, and two things happen. Number one, if they try and squat, they're going to fall forward or backwards. And secondly, they end up pulling their lower back muscles because there's nothing supporting them down here. Okay? And the basic guideline is that you want your feet, your heels, in line with your shoulders. Okay, doesn't matter how tall you are, sort of there. Okay,
Basically your natural foot position.
basically your natural foot stance. That's what you want to have because that's how we stand naturally. We're balanced. Okay, And if we stand this way, we're still balanced, okay? But nobody stands like this. Well, I've seen people stand like that. Usually, high school, junior high kids who have these really baggy pants, and if they stand still unless they go like this, they fall down. Which is really, if you ever watch these kids, if you ever watch them run across the campus or something like that, it's like the old Western movies with the women who raise their skirts, you know, and they raise their pants so they can run. And it's just, here you've got this big tough guy, you know, it's like, you know how stupid you look? Anyway, okay. The other problem is that some people will come in and they go onto the balls of their feet, okay, and they try and lift the person this way, and there's no support, okay. You were doing it this morning once, but it's really common, so you know, don't need to feel bad. It's really common for people to try and stand on the balls of their feet to try and see, oh, I got this spring, I can use it. It doesn't work. You need to have your feet firmly planted on the ground. Okay? They've got to be there. Okay? And squat. Okay? And in my dojo, I call it camp squat. But it's amazing how many young people have not been camping and they have no idea what camp squat is. But all camp squat is that you are squatting down. Okay? And if you have to spend 5 minutes with your students going up and down, okay, and squatting so that they get the concept, then you have them do that. Once they've done that for 5 minutes, they get the concept, because they will never want to do it again. So that when you're doing your throw, and their thighs and your cleavage, okay, when you're squatting down, okay, I'm not bending forward, I'm squatting down. My legs lift the person up, okay, and at this point, one way to find out if they're well balanced is to have them let go, and if the person stays on their back, okay, then if I'm balanced. It's a real simple way to self-check, okay, and then all you really have to do is turn and look the other way, and they go down, go splat, go boom, okay. So, for some of you that were doing something wrong, okay, you're like, oh, I'm doing something wrong. I want all of you to come out and just do 2 more pieces, then we're going to leave it, okay? Because this is all pretty basic, but it's the basic stuff that we got to get. Okay, very good. So get your partner, do this 2 times a piece. Our partner will just finish this technique. Just the first. Well, one of the things, okay, one of the things to be aware of, okay, and this. Your number 1 rule in self-defense is to do what?
Go home.
Go home.
Move is part of it. What's the number 1 rule in self-defense? That's part of it.
Protect your head.
Don't get
The first word is right.
Protect yourself.
Protect yourself. Okay? And that goes all the way to setting up your techniques to protect yourself. Okay? That's what your goal is. And some people get injured in the process of doing techniques because they didn't remember that concept. If you get this leg out here, and you're trying to do a hip throw, and he comes in and puts his weight on here, okay, it can do a lot of damage to your knee, sometimes permanent, okay. Thomas has one student who now has a pin in their knee as a result of having the opponent, not intentionally, but it was out there and they came down on the leg. Same problem occurs, although I didn't want to get into this, same problem occurs when you're doing Tai Tosh, if you lock the person's kneecap, okay, and you're still trying to do this technique, where they're going to make contact with you is your knee joint, okay, and that's a good way to get your knee joint wrapped up. When you do a Tai Tosh, you block low at the ankle, okay, and you adjust yourself so you can do that, okay, or you've got to go up to the hip, which isn't a good idea, because he can do so much here to counter me. This is pathetic. Okay, only the dumb get thrown with a Tai Tosh clear up here. But anyway, you want to be down here because you have to protect your joints. Okay, and if you're in California, you have to protect your joints for other reasons, but that's something like that. Anyway, but we're going to tax them. We're going to have to have a prescription, and we're going to tax them. But anyway. But so anyway, you always, whenever you're doing techniques, you always have to look at, am I protecting myself in the process of doing this technique? Because when you don't do that, that's when the most serious injuries occur to you, and they're usually joint injuries. And the joint injury should be going to your uke on the street, not you. Okay, so we're done with you. Okay, okay. Next injury. Okay. Yeah, you don't want to get yourself hurt because then you can't defend yourself. Okay, so we're going to continue on here. Dumb, tucky, dumb, alles, rocky, loomis, tucky, high, fire, schwitz. And we're going to stick to you. And Logan, nice to you volunteer. Okay, Teinagi. He knows Teinagi. What's a Teinagi?
It's a hand throw.
Good, okay. Okay, now, hand throw. We're going to turn this around. Hand throw, he grabs you with pellets. That's a fun thing to do, okay? And you're going to come in, whatever you do to release, I don't care, even if it means a good kick up the crotch, okay? Okay. You're going to come in, and then everyone's fine to here, and they bring this around, and they extend an arm out, and uke go off in that direction because they're extending. And this is the mistake. They're starting off nice, and then they reach out. And once you reach out, I'm off balance. I mean, you should be able to feel it yourself. If you start off here with just going through the kata, okay, and you step in, and you go to here, and you're fine, and then you reach out, you're off balance. And that's why Tori goes off, goes off in that direction, and you've lost it. Or you try to hold on and he pulls you towards it. Okay? And it's the same concept. It's rotation. Okay? Rotation, rotation, location. Okay? So he's here, you're here. What other thing are we messing up on? Didn't even notice I messed up on doing this technique.
You didn't hit him in the face.
There we go. Okay.
Now, but you did kick him in the groin.
Yes. Okay. There's one thing I didn't do, and we all did it. We all did it on the hip throw, but I didn't do it this time. What didn't I do?
Look at your feet.
And this is something really common among new students. Stepping all the way around. Well, it wasn't. Well, I didn't step all the way around, but what else didn't I do?
Well, I would pull it down to my hip and twist there.
Okay, that's okay. I'm just bringing it into my chest. Whether it's down here, up here, it doesn't matter as long as it's on this torso line, so to speak. Okay. But what didn't I do? Okay. What I didn't do was I was looking at him. I didn't extend my key in that circular rotation. Okay. And because I was looking at him, I extended out that way. And so what you have to do, and is when you're doing this technique, you come in. I have to, as I pivot back, I have to keep this here. I want this as close to my y-axis as possible, okay? And even if you do it at your hip, you're kind of okay. Okay, here, and on it, I have to look off in that direction. I don't care what he looks like. As I tell my students, once he's down and you've broken his wrist and all that other neat stuff, you get out your cell phone, take a picture, and you're done with it, okay? Because eyewitnesses are really lousy witnesses. They are. If you get a good defense attorney, you could have beat up a person and that his attorney could prove that he wasn't the guy that attacked you because you were stressed out, your glasses fell off, whatever, you had a couple glasses of wine, whatever, okay, you were disoriented. So that's why you got the camera there, take a picture. Okay, are there probably other people taking pictures with their cell phones? Okay, this is cool. Look nice on YouTube, no matter who wins. So you're here, and again, I'm going to turn right over here, and I want him right at my feet. So I have to keep his hand as close to my y-axis as possible. Okay? He will end up at my feet, and if he doesn't end up at my feet, it will hurt his wrist more. Okay? You don't want to extend out so that your uke can fall more comfortably. He has to learn as a uke that he has some responsibilities too. You don't want to do it so severely that you break his wrist. But in Jiu-Jitsu, we all know that acceptance of a certain level of pain and discomfort is necessary. We're kind of masochistic. Okay? So you bring him in to you. Okay? Try not to bend over. You bend over, it messes up your key. If you have to do anything, squat down. Working on the calf squat. Right? Squat down, but don't bend over. Okay, so we're going to have all of you get up, do Te-Nagi a couple times a piece, and for that, we're going to move into submission and making sure the right place for whatever you're going to finish up with. Okay, so let's get it. My sensei said, none of this stuff is written down. And a lot of this stuff is not written down, okay? And he said, there's no way you can remember it all. Take notes. And Seki never objected to us taking notes in class. He would kind of like harass us sometimes for taking notes in class, because that was his nature. Because he'd do a technique and say, you got it all down this time? And we'd all say, no, sensei. But it's worthwhile for your students to take notes, because the notes they take are going to be better than anything they're going to find on any video, in any book, because they've written things down in a way that makes sense to them. Okay, that's what's important. Okay, if you plan to succeed in college, you've got to know how to take notes that make sense to you. It doesn't matter what language you write them down, whatever you're comfortable with, whatever abbreviations you're the only one that has to understand them. Okay, so encourage your students to take notes. Okay, it will not detract from them learning. Okay, and then when you get home, like some teachers told me in class many years ago, when you get after class during lunch, before you start hanging out with your friends, look at your notes from anthropology. Read them over. Rewrite them if they don't make sense to you. Okay, and they're literally correct. When you get home from a class, you should take a few minutes, go over your notes, make sure they make sense to you, because your mind has amazing recall ability. And you'll say, this doesn't make sense, or I need to add these little notes in there, and add them in there. No one's going to grade you for neatness, or complete sentences, or grammar, or spelling, or any of that other stuff. So take notes, okay? And make sure you take them in pen rather than pencil, because otherwise you end up, and this is even in a classroom situation, otherwise particularly if you're left-handed. Left-handed people, if they use pencil, they end up with lead all down the side of their feet. If they're right-handed, because we tend to write like this, and we tend to smudge what we've written.
Dry erase words very close.
Dry erase words. So use a pen, okay, because it doesn't smear.
That's a high percent of
Okay.
lefties.
High percentage of lefties in here.
Yeah, how many are left-handed, by the way? That's it.
Jeez,
One, two,
five out of-
three,
Wow, 5 of you.
12?
Yeah.
Five sinisters.
Yes.
We're the only ones in the right mind.
Serious.
That's a lot.
Left is always right. Left is always right.
Anybody
When Mark
read the
shows
horoscope
up-
this
What?
weekend? When Mark shows up, they'll do this.
Yeah, it'd be 6, because Marc Tucker is also left-handed. It's amazing. And the general population is only 10 to 15%
Yeah,
left-handed.
this side of the phone.
Anyway, so let's go on.
Bugle.
Okay.
The 13th word, anything with right shoulder.
Okay, we're doing a hand from it, so we'll go easy on my shoulder. Okay, or tell you what, let me use someone else. Okay, and we'll use, because you look mean and vicious, so you don't need a blue belt, so. No, you're safe. Okay, we're gonna do a hand, just stick your hand out there. Okay, we're gonna do the hand, I'm gonna hopefully end up in the right position here. We're gonna do a hand throw, okay? And all I'm gonna do is bring him down, he's gonna go down, see, he's learned. Okay, now, he's where I want him to be. What I want to make sure of before I go down is that he is on his side. If he is on his back, lie down. That's your cue. If he is on his back, you are going to lift him up onto his side and step in. You always want him on his side, because this way he can't do anything to you. Okay? From here, You're going to go down, and if you want to go into wrist lock lift, wrist lock lift. If you want it to go into an arm bar or shoulder lock, okay, that's fine. Okay, left knee is up to protect, block his head. Whatever you do, arm bar, okay, okay, you're set. And then all you do for your submission is bring your hip in. You don't have to lift up. Because if you lift up, it's a lot more effort and your hips come in anyway. So just bring your hips up and it puts you in a good position. Okay, that's your submission. And you're in tight against it. There's no crotch space here. Okay? And theoretically, if you have them nice and tight, you don't even need this hand for an arm bar. You just come in and dislocate his elbow. So what I want you to do is you're going to do the hand grip. You're going to make sure he's on his right side. Come in tight, just go down and go into whatever you're going to do. Okay, wrist lock lift, finger press. Okay, come around. Here, do it this way. Okay, that's nice. He turns around, fine. Wrist press. Okay, whatever you want to do is up to you. But I want you in tight. And I don't want you going after him. Bring him to you. Okay. Always help your attacker. Okay, very good. So just a couple, 3 times a piece. These are techniques you all know. Should be doing okay. Okay, let's go. Now we need to get into some techniques where you do tend to extend the person outward, and how do you get to where he is, and how do you keep him still coming at your feet? Because you can't do everything where you just stand still and have him come to you. And these are problems where students tend to get off balance because they don't know where to move. Okay. People keep moving around. This is making a problem. Used you, nice use volunteer. Okay. Sure.
Corey.
Okay. We're gonna, okay, so you guys gotta come to class more, not get your names.
It's only 8,000 miles.
Where are you coming from?
We respond to ugly too. Just say
Washington
ugly,
State.
step up.
Washington State.
Is there a country called Washington? Oh, that's
There's
Washington,
3 Vancouvers and 2 Washingtons.
Right.
True, yeah.
Right.
Speaking as a former reporter.
There are also 2 Burbanks in California. You
No.
didn't know that?
In California?
In California, there are 2 Burbanks.
Where's the other one?
The one is a suburb of, actually I think San Jose.
Really?
It's like up here it's Canyon Country, Newhall, Saugus, Valencia, and it's all Santa Clarita. Or like Los Angeles, you got Van Nuys, Mission Hills, and all those other little sub-names. But Burbank is a suburb of, I think it's San Jose. Okay. God, this is an interesting class. Last night we talked about how the red light came about.
For what purpose?
For what? How do we get into that?
We were talking about crotch space and getting comfortable with your opponent. Snuggling up to
And not becoming too intimate.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing digress from there. Okay, here we go.
That's why it says 10 and over.
Okay, we're gonna have.
Some content may be not suitable.
Let's do a corkscrew. Okay, we'll set this up to the phone. So he's gonna come in like he's got an overhead. He's gonna block, you come in here, you've stepped in, you've turned, and you throw him and take your fall. Okay.
You want me to go over?
Roll over.
Okay.
That's where I let go.
As
We're doing this slowly here. He does a nice UT. Now, the one thing you have to make sure he's far away from me right now as far as I'm concerned. Okay, I'm not in the balanced position. However, I still have his wrist. What you have to do is as you do this, as he's going over, you need to step in to him. You can't bring him, if you're extending the person out in that direction, you can't expect him to come back to your feet. Okay, unless you've done the technique, he doesn't know how to fall, he lands on his shoulder, or breaks his shoulder, which is an inaccurate medical term, and then he's at your feet. But you will not be able to do anything to him because one thing I'm sure most of you realize is once you injure a person, all they will want to do is get away from you, unless they're high on drugs. If you injure a person, they're going to get a lot more adrenaline into their system, A lot of other hormones are going to start flowing, which will cover up their pain to some extent. They're going to be a lot stronger, and all they want to do is get away from you. And you're in a really dangerous situation once you've actually injured a person.
They can panic.
They will panic, and that's the worst situation to have, because they're not concerned about anything. Okay, so you're here. You need to step into them. It's usually one step. Okay, so if you're going to do a corkscrew, and we're going to do the same thing for finger. I don't care whether it's corkscrew again. Comes in here, come around. You have to make sure. Okay, if you do the technique here, I am completely off balance. Unless I'm going to go to something else. Okay, but for the basic corkscrew, you have to make sure that the person steps forward with their right, he does his zucchini, do your forward roll call, okay, and you step in to him to maintain your balance and control of him. Okay? And I'm trying to use my legs as much as possible rather than bending over. Okay? If you're doing a finger throw, a forward finger throw, cross wrist grab. Okay. And you're going to come in and do a forward finger throw. Okay. Again, when I throw him, I have to step forward. Okay. I want to be, if I'm throwing him in an outward direction, I want to end up where I'm in a controllable situation. Okay. So you need it. It's hardest thing is to get the students to walk towards their attacker. And that's really all it is walk towards your attacker.
You have to anticipate where he's going to land.
You have
and
to, right.
go there.
You go there. You have to anticipate where they're going to be. And one of the nice things about requiring that they work out in a small area is that they learn where the technique is going to put the attacker. And this is so vital for you, in a street situation. You want to throw a person into a fire hydrant? Cool. Okay? You want to throw them into a newsstand? Fine. You want to throw them into a passing police car? Fine.
Right through the window.
Right through the window. If you want to throw them into a plate glass window from some store, be careful because most of those windows today are made out of plastic. And and they will bounce. It'll still set off the burglar alarm, but they will bounce. Okay? And then you've got to deal with this person who's bouncing back at you. Okay? Although I don't think you're going to be able to do much.
Oh,
Ricochet. Oh, you ricochet, huh? Anyway, wasn't there a actor sometime? Yes. Ricochet. Ricochet. There's another one who had a weird name who passed away. But anyway, they usually do. Yeah, they do. We all pass away. Anyway, so I want you to get your partner. I don't care whether you do a corkscrew or forward finger throw, but I want you to step, anticipate where the throw is going to take the person and be there. Okay? You don't need to do the technique quickly. And if all of you know where the attacker is going to go, we should all be able to do this without wiping out each other in the process. Okay? So find a spot, start from the edge of a mat, okay, and throw the person in towards the center. We don't want to Step forward, there you go, good. Okay, to the technique again. Picked up often enough in class anyway. Most of you, let's turn the other way. Most of you on the corkscrew come around here and everything is cool until here. And then what's happening is some of you have been taught, well, you just come back and take it down this way. Okay? If you take him back or do anything that brings this arm back, okay, he has two choices. He's either going to go splat right here, and I'll show you how to assure that. Okay, 'cause it's all in the wrist, it's no place else. Or he's going to take a step back with his right foot and turn into you, no, come into me, here. He can come in that way, or he, come in sideways as you go down. See, and he's out of this right now. He's gonna knock me over. Okay, so this is, if you're going to do this, okay, you're gonna try and bring it, first of all, you need to get yourself out of the way. Again, it's movement of one foot. The other thing, to make sure he goes down, notice how I have his wrist, okay? And all I have to do from here is, his wrist right now is, his palm, hand is perpendicular to the ground. I want it parallel to the ground. And so bringing him down is not a matter of pulling him, it's a matter of turning his wrist. That's all it is. You're going from here to here. That's it. Okay? And it's a total Aikido Jiu-Jitsu technique or Aikido technique. It's not a corkscrew.
Probably get a fracture in the process.
He will, yes, I mean, yeah, he may break his shoulder. He may get a
Green stick fracture.
green branch, what's called green branch or torque fracture.
Spiral fracture.
Those fractures are the worst fractures to get. Doctors hate them because it usually means surgery because they've got to take out little bone pieces, and it's a long recovery. It usually requires a few pins. And most of the fractures that people on the street will get if we're doing these turns and locks are, if it's not a fracture to the wrist, it's going, and it hits one of the straight bones, it's going to be either a torque or green branch fracture because the bone is literally being twisted. And at some point, it breaks. Okay? So, all I want you to do, you're just going to come out, you're going to do this, you're going to come in as you did before. All I want you to do is when you bring this down here, and I stepped forward, notice that, I've got one hand, and I brought it down here, I can't bring it back up and do this again, because we don't want to work the water pump. Okay? Okay? So all we're going to have you do is step, and one thing I do, okay, and this is really stupid, I'm a great believer that the index finger should be extended on many techniques because theoretically your key extends out through your index finger. Okay, who knows? But anyway, so when I do this, rather than having the index finger kind of, I'll have the index finger extended. And surprisingly, the technique will work so much better. Okay? And I can bring them up and back down. Okay? And once I bring them up, then if I want, I can go under a corkscrew again. And then it's taken. Okay? Fun with friends and enemies. So anyway, and I don't care what attack you use. I just want you to do this a couple times. And again, the key is, once you've got his hand, corkscrew is two hands. You're stepping back to do this, switch to one hand. Okay, step back so you're behind it. Okay, this hand is up for protection in case he does something stupid like trying to hit me. Okay, or he tries to move into me, I can block his shoulder. Okay, but I turn the hand palm down and make sure I am behind him. If he comes back, I go back further too. Okay, he makes like, he knew crab kata. Okay, so I just want you to try this, but you keep control of your attacker. Okay, everybody get out with your uke, find someone who's got one arm.
Feel that pressure. You have that pressure. That's
Okay.
release.
One thing, and this is, lower ranks will tend to do this, and most upper ranks get away from it. We have a tendency, because we are human beings, and we're very sympathetic to other people's facial expressions. Okay? And in some cultures, it's more so than other cultures. But in the quote American culture, we're very sensitive to people's facial expressions. They don't have to say anything, and we'll react to whatever is going on with your face. Okay? One of the things you have to work with new students on is not to look at their attackers' faces. Their faces are irrelevant. Okay? They're unimportant. It's not even important to look at your attacker. you do the technique, okay? As I was speaking over here earlier, I said, I probably should have asked you guys to bring blindfolds. So, because if you had to do these techniques blindfolded, I would almost guarantee you would be doing them a lot more effectively than you are now, because you don't have the visual distraction of looking at this person, seeing if they're cooperating, looking at their face, seeing if they're in pain or not, okay? And all of us can feign pain. That wasn't meant to rhyme. But all of us can feign pain, okay? Fake pain, okay? We can look like we're really suffering and we're not. And some of us can have perfectly blank expressions on our faces and be in a lot of pain, okay? So what happens is newer students tend to look, I'll do a technique and I'm looking at your eyes, and I see your eyes look like they're painful or you're starting to drool or something like that, and so we tend to back off, okay? Because we're looking at the other person's face to see if the technique is working, or if they're in pain. You don't want to hurt another person. My bouquet is my friend, okay? So you've got to get them away from this, okay? Don't look at the person's face until after you're done with the technique. It's unimportant, and it may not be there by the time you're done. Anyway, okay. The second issue that came up, you want to explain it since I'm had to do with a corkscrew and going down on your knee or something. Just use someone to be your bouquet.
Well, if in the NICU, can I probably take this? There's 3 kneeling techniques. Yes. And
Let's turn around so.
This is Sutami
no,
Waza.
you're standing.
You're standing. Forward sitting position.
So it's the same thing, same attack. Come up.
Correct. Good.
But
You're okay.
I'm making him come to me because I'm not moving. And that's what I was misunderstanding.
Okay. You still want him to come here. You can't scoot over to him.
Right.
So what you then, when you get done here, is you want to get back down into your formal sitting position, and then use his hand, wrist pressure, whatever you need to do to get him to move to you, to come to you. Okay. Bring him into you. He's still before. And now you can set up your submission. But you want him, when you're done with your technique, you want to be able to return to a formal sitting position. And you use wrist press or nerves or whatever you want to get him so that his arm or whatever is ideally between your legs so that you can do whatever submission you want to do.
Okay.
Okay?
So for this one, then I am getting him to come to me
He comes
rather
to
than
you.
me going.
Yes.
So that's all it was.
Yeah. And one quick, was there any other questions?
No, that was it.
But you could, right? I mean, you're moving on your knees to do the throw. And if you have to, you could continue to move on your
You
knees
could,
and move
you can
closer.
bring one knee up, the other one down.
Yeah, just
if
kinda
you-
walk.
As long as you don't scoot in on your kneecaps. One of the nice things about, go ahead.
Well, my understanding on doing these techniques from this position is it really now has to be upper body control, and
Yes.
I can't compensate for bad technique by moving around.
Right, okay. One of the advantages of having your students learn techniques through Tony Waza is because it restricts their lower body movement. And it really, because they only have upper body movement, it really improves their execution of techniques. One of the things you can have your students do if they're just sitting down, okay, one of the things Seki would do is get on our case room, it's kind of like it was a no-win battle with him. If you did this, he'd chew you out for not paying attention, and then if you didn't do it, he'd chew you out for not doing Sutami Waza while you're sitting on the side of the mat. So rather than having students standing around watching while other people were up on the mat working out, okay, if we have a dojo where you've got too many students for the mat space and you can only have 4 to 6 techniques out, what you would do is you'd have 2 students, let's see if I can do this here, just sit down. Okay. You would have 2 students and they would just be still having problems, but it's better, okay. They would be facing each other and they would do wrist lock takedowns and they'd go into all these movements, blocking, etc., and doing the Sutami Waza without trying to move. They can move 90 degrees, but that would be it. And it's a great way for your students to learn, number 1, where techniques go, number 2, how to do techniques in a smaller space, Because here, you only need, you can take a mat, tear it in half, and give every 2 students half a mat. And say, that's all we're going to have to do these techniques. Okay? And if they're in a formal sitting position, it can be done. And they learn how to control the person to bring them into them so that they don't get out of this perimeter. So it's another easy way to help students learn control. Okay, and that's just in terms of teaching skills. And I don't do it, when have I done that here? Not in decades. But it's a good way to have students practice techniques. So anyway, okay. Any questions so far on this topic, which is location? Okay. Yes, sir.
Just part of that is also trying to respond to multiple attacker situation too,
Yes.
right? Where you're specifically aiming the Uki's body to land in a particular place to block up the flow
Yes,
of other people.
good point to bring up, because if you have multiple attackers, one of your goals is to use one of the attackers as a barrier to other attackers. It's kind of like a fixed, you throw a person in front of another person, so they have to go around that person to get to you. Okay, so yes, that's why you need to get this knowledge down with lower ranks, is so when they start dealing with multiple attackers, now it's an almost automatic thing. There's no real learning that has to take place, because they know where the technique is going to put the person. Okay, and that's called control of the situation. Okay, so any other questions or concerns on that, dealing with this? Okay, during the break, Logan will be reading his notes to us. No, I want to kid. See, I'm picking on you. I'm sorry.
It'll take longer than the break or you go.
That's okay. Ready? Okay. Multiple technique flow. To do this successfully, this is really hard for new students. Okay, and probably anyone below purple, and it's not their fault. Okay. In order to have multiple technique flow, that's where you're moving from one technique into another, and into another, and into another. If you're thinking about that, you're probably saying, I need to know all these separate techniques. Okay. And because you're still learning basics, you don't have that down. So this is probably going to be significantly more challenging for you two guys than it will be for anyone else. Okay. And we were talking about this last night. Who was I talking about it? Was it with you or Byron or what other? Oh, Michael. That around second, third dan.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there are points in your learning where you will have, Michael referred to it as an epiphany, okay? Where you will, I found that when students get to around second, first cue, they start experimenting with stuff and putting it together in different ways to see if it works, okay, and what doesn't work. And that's part of the learning process, okay? And you can only do that when you have your basic techniques down to where they're just there, and they don't require any conscious thought. And usually you're fine, and I found a lot of the techniques and variations that I've picked up have come from actually first and second Q students, because they will try stuff and see if it works. And then what I do is, if they say, they're coming, they sensei, new technique. I say, yes. Okay, and I have to look enthused because I've probably seen this before, but it's a revelation for them. And you got to give them that support and make them feel like they've accomplished something. Okay? And sometimes they actually do. Okay? So what I do is I say, oh, and this is how I determine the validity of a combination that they've come up with. I say, okay, you two can do this, or you can do this. I want you to teach it to the class. Okay, if a majority of the class can do it, it probably has some validity to it. If no one else can do it, not even the black belts, then you have to say, okay, this is something that's unique to you, it works for you, but it's probably not going to work for anyone else, and I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, I'm not going to add it to my repertoire of techniques I could teach. Okay, and that's a good way to sift through things. If the majority of people, if you come up with something, okay, And as a sensei, you can teach anything in class. Oh, I just learned this technique from Sensei Oshimi Batawada. Okay. And all the students, you show it to the students, and none of them can do it. Not even your black belts. You then have to go back and think, gee, is this a valid technique? Because techniques, to be valid, have to be teachable. They have to be learnable. Okay. So that's at one point. It's around first, second cue. Students will start just experimenting. Around second, third time, they have multiple technique flow down fairly well. They've got enough command of the techniques. They know how the body is moving, okay, and where things are at. And they know, well, I can go from this to this to this to this to this. And as Michael said last night, he has at this point 100 and some odd variations of a hand throw. And that's kind of happens throughout second, third degree. It's, again, it's one of those revelation points. You get up to around fourth to sixth, someplace in there, and you begin to realize that separate techniques are irrelevant. And the person attacks you, and you just do something. Okay? It's all, the proper term is probably mushin. You have no idea what you've done, and you can just go from one, you can do the multiple technique flow, you can do all this stuff, and it just works automatically, and everything looks fine, and you have no idea what you did. Which is normal.
Then they say, do it again.
Then they say, do it again, and I say, what?
Well.
And you can never do it the same way twice, okay? Seki was occasionally that way. We can never get him to show the same technique twice sometimes. He'd always have a different little variation in there or something of that sort. And I don't know whether he did it intentionally or because he had enough command of the art, he just did whatever, and I don't like to use the phrase, he did whatever came to mind, but he did whatever didn't come to mind. It was just an automatic, reaction or
It's
whatever.
kind of a subconscious.
Subconscious, it becomes, the art becomes subconscious. And so the attack becomes, and that's why sometimes I say in class, the attack is really irrelevant. You're going to do whatever you do. Now, just in terms of statistically, what will you use on the street? Okay. You will probably, regardless of how many techniques you've learned, you probably have 10 or 20 favorite ones. You can do really nicely without any thinking. The two techniques that you will probably most commonly use on the street are, number one, the technique you're most comfortable with, and number two, the technique you just most recently learned. Because they're the ones that are taught to your brain cell list. Okay, so you just need to keep that in mind. Okay, you're not going to get to do all this neat stuff out on the street that you learn in class. Okay, your mind will take over, or your subconscious mind will take over. You do whatever technique you do, and then if you actually happen to have to use it on the street, the worst thing you can do is say, when the police show up or something like that, well, he swung at me, so I blocked him with the right, whatever it is, block, and then I made my fist into a blah, 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 and I struck him in the lower ribs, which I knew would fracture, and then I went into a corkscrew, and I knew he wouldn't know how to fall, so I landed on his shoulder and separated and dislocated his shoulder, and he also got a concussion out of it, but I knew that would happen too. Okay. You're leaving yourself open for tremendous liability. Okay. Your best, and you may not even know for sure what you did. Okay. Your best bet, okay, and a good attorney will probably tell you the same thing. It's the same as if you are in a car accident, at least in California. You have, how many days or weeks do you have to report what actually, the paperwork? Something like it's actually more to California. It's like a month or two. You need, anytime you get into a conflict with a person, don't open your mouth and say, I have no idea what happened. I need to sit down and think about what happened. You need the time to step back, calm yourself down, which is usually going to take a day or two. Write down what you think happened, put it down, come back to it an hour or two later, look at it and say, is this, and rewrite it so that it makes sense to you. Because once you open your mouth, someone else is going to write down what you say. And if you say anything that sounds like you were the aggressor, you're in trouble. Okay? So you just, and if you don't really recall what happened, you say, I don't recall what happened.
You say it happened so fast.
It's something so fast, I have no idea what I really did. Because odds are, if that's what, all you put down,
I was
you're
so
probably
scared.
dead on accurate. Okay?
For my child.
Pardon?
I was afraid for my life. and
I was
I'm not
afraid for
quite
my
sure.
life and I just reacted. Okay? It's important that you say I was, afraid for my life or in fear of my life or whatever it is, and that is your most important thing to say. Because you don't want to look like you planned this out ahead of time, because there have been martial artists that have been attacked on the street, and because they've known it, they thought out ahead of time, I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do that, they end up being tried for assault. And they end up going to jail, because it then is premeditated, even though you're defending yourself. Okay? The laws are weird and not always fair. So that's why you don't open your mouth until you've had time to think about what happened. Okay? And the same thing is important in a car, like in a car accident too. You need time to gather your thoughts. And the police will understand. They may not be happy because now they can't finish their paperwork. But you're not responsible to them. You're responsible to yourself. Okay. Multiple attack. Okay, any questions so far on this? Okay. You got all that? No. Okay.
You like it back?
No. The laws in Florida are different. In Florida, it says when the big wave comes, make sure you... No. All the land in Florida is low.
Right.
Make sure you have a life jacket on.
Then you'll put your between your knees.
Pardon? Then what?
Then you'll put your head between your knees.
Right. Okay, very good. Okay, let me borrow Frank here. Okay. We're going to start out with, again, it's easier to teach multiple techniques while working, obviously, it's all basic techniques put together. Okay. So if I come in and he takes a swing at me and I want to block and I come around and do a hand throw, okay, and I take him down, okay, he go down, he go boom, what's most evident here? Now I can take him into a variety of submissions, etc., but what's the most easily accessible extremity here at this point?
His arm.
His arm, okay, I can come in, use a nerve, and I can get him to come up. Okay. What other extremity is available? Fingers. Okay. He got fingers. So I've got him here. So all I'm going to do is take him here, grab 2 or 3 fingers, and this is not a good situation for me, so I'm going to switch again. Okay. And I'm going to bring him up. Okay. And now I can do a forward finger throw. Nice Yukimi. Oh, he has ube. Okay, ube is your thumb. So I'm going to use his thumb. Okay, and I want to get him up, sir. Okay, he's up. Oh, we got an elbow. Okay, elbow. We're going to go into an arm lock. Okay, from arm lock, where can we go here? Oh, I can take this and take that down here. Oh, we got the hand again. Okay, what you always want to do is make sure when you're doing multiple techniques, the only basic rule is keep your hand on one extremity, ideally at a joint. Okay, because as long as you have control of him somewhere, okay, you can go into something else. Okay, here you're familiar with the handshake, the thing with the thumb, you have the same nerve under each finger. So even if he has his hand around your waist from behind, you just come over his hand, one finger to one finger, bring it in, and he'll come up. Okay, he's up. Oh, gee, I think I'm going to a shoulder. See, his arm is bent. What technique can you visualize from a bent arm? Shoulder lock. Easy. Cool. I don't want to do that. I want to do hip throw. Now, for those, if you've never done this, which you two probably haven't, when you do, and I'm not saying you have to go through this sequence here. Okay. I'm actually going to give you, I'm going to have you get up in a few minutes, And just, you with your partner are gonna work out a routine based on what techniques you know, of moving from one technique into another. Okay, if you go from here and into a hip throw, one of the nice things, although this really looks horrible, you can only have, when you're doing a technique, you can only have one blank point in the technique. That's the word. Starts with a P. Pivot. You can only have one pivot point. So if I come in to do the hip throw, it's going to take actually takes all the pressure off this shoulder joint. Okay. So this isn't as bad as it looks. Someone who doesn't know what's going on thinks, oh my God, you're going to ruin this person. And you're really not. Because if I'm trying to do this, going backwards and trying to do a hip throw, which is forward, neither of them are going to work. So you have to give up on one thing. So what I want you to do, you're going to get up with your partner. Do you have any questions here?
I have a question on this, only one pivot point per technique?
You can only have, yeah, you can only have one pivot point. You have one point the technique rotates on. For hip throw, the pivot point, in terms of leverage, is going to be at his hip. And it's going to be a turn, okay? This shoulder up here is going to stay where it's at. There's no pressure on it as this part is being done. Because the techniques, actually, if you do them both, they work in opposite directions. Okay. One of the things you'll discover in doing multiple technique flow is that you need to make sure, even if you're trying to do, setting up for two things, that they both go in the same direction. Then you can apply both at once. If they're going in opposite directions or in different directions, you have to use one or the other, otherwise you're ending up fighting yourself. Okay, so the idea is to keep it simply, to go from one technique, move into another technique. And I'd like to see if you can build it up to going through 5 different techniques. Okay. It may be, you may be going from a hand throw, okay, coming around underneath, like a wrist lock takedown, okay. You can come up here, okay, which is another technique. This is also going for shoulder lock. It feels like garbage as far as I'm concerned, okay, but it's going to work.
Looks like
Until
Frank
he
doesn't
clamps
do
onto
it.
my hand, and I'm in deep trouble. Okay, okay, and you bring it down. You go into a forward corkscrew. Okay, you decide you don't want to do that, so you're going to come back and do the technique we just did before. Okay, so you want to be able to have techniques that flow into each other. Yes.
Can we move up the joint higher?
Oh, sure. You can move, yes, yeah, you can move wherever you want. Yeah. Some people like to move all over the body. I prefer working one, like you said, one joint hierarchy. It's easy to do. But you can start off, with this, and you come around, get the nose, and then once he comes around, you can go into a headlock. Then you can go into obi-nagi, come over your head, come around, do a choke. Okay. Then you can reach out to the hand that's sticking out there, grab a finger, bring it back up, standing up. Yeah, you can use whatever body parts you want, as long as they don't fall off.
Or snap.
Or snap up. Okay, any questions? Any other questions? Okay, you need to take your time on this, but I'm going to give you about, we're going to give you about 10-15 minutes to work on this, be with your partner, and then you're going to come out and demonstrate for everyone else what you did.
Nice.
And then, when you get done, we're going to allow for a couple of critique comments or suggestions on how to improve it for each team. Okay, this does take time. Okay, but it's a matter for the instructor to be able to sit back and let the students work things out. Okay, so thank you very much. And you've got about 10 minutes, but it's just I just said, you've got to stop verbalizing subconsciously. That's a lot easier said than done. The analogy is, you're doing something you don't realize what you're doing because you're not aware of the total situation. So don't wear an iPod when you go into a bar. Okay, just taking that down. In any case, I was talking to Mike. I said, I really should go outside and get the roll of duct tape out of the car, and we'll put duct tape on everyone's mouth, and then at the very least they can hum their way through techniques. Anyway,
Shave first.
so we can have you blindfolded, and Mike also said you can get blindfolds at work.
Bed Bath and Beyond. Just don't buy them all at
Just
once.
don't get the ones with the little frills around it.
Cashier will look at you funny if you buy multiple blindfolds.
Yeah,
Don't ask.
don't ask, don't tell.
Exactly.
Um,
I'm sorry.
Actually, for one of the things yesterday, for tomorrow, for the lethal weapons, I went to when I went to the market this morning to get some ice, I also looked for a really cheap toothbrush. The cashier says, she says, oh, now you can brush your teeth. I said, no, she says, I said, no, I'm going to use it for a self-defense class. And she looks at me and says, a toothbrush? I said, sure. So you'll find out tomorrow what we do with the toothbrush. But it doesn't mean you all have to bring one. Okay? Toothbrushes are expensive little turkeys. I mean, they're several dollars a piece.
Because they're not simple little toothbrushes anymore.
Don't buy the Dora the Explorer toothbrush.
They're,
Spend
anyhow,
They're all the Nike version.
the Nike version of the toothbrush. Yeah, so I found one for 99 cents. But the bristles fell out.
For $5 you can get a vibrating toothbrush.
That's good. I'm not going to go.
A lot of those.
I'm not going to go anywhere with that.
Multi-purpose one.
Okay, we need to get serious again here. We're going to have one team come up at a time, go through your routine, okay? And then if anybody wants to make some comments, they can make comments. You have to realize that some of you have not had any experience doing this. Some of you have had experience. Some of you are going to be better than others, so be gentle, okay? We don't want anyone walking out of here at noon frustrated and not coming back, okay? Yes, sir.
More match days for me.
Now let me get out of the way.
Guys, move back just a little bit. Thank you.
Don't damage your furniture.
We can get our scorecards.
That's right, we need to score. We should have brought the church.
But you got 5 fingers. In my case, you got 2 fingers.
Especially if you're thinking.
Single fingers are not allowed.
I think that's 7.
It's just gonna keep going.
Nice.
Nice.
Very nice.
Very good, nicely done.
I'm sure this guy's only a blue belt.
We'll see after this weekend.
Okay, next.
Okay, does anybody have any comments, one or the other?
Weren't you supposed to hum?
Hold on. Yeah.
No comments.
No comments, okay.
In camera music.
Okay. Go for it, Jeff.
Just walk over to
Okay. Now, feel free to TI, because we do get sound on the video. Okay, so you can do that
again.
You can have some verbal fun while you're doing this too.
If they don't, I'll TI for them.
Added it in post-production.
We have poster, we have a whole thing,
So like
production TIs.
Yeah, I like the sound effect, kicking it. Boom.
Yeah.
Mainly from old Tarzan movies. Okay, any comments?
I'm seeing some throws that are stopping, would be showstoppers, and they're not really technique flows.
Yeah.
It kind of stops the flow when you go to a
That's what
certain
happened.
type of
The one
throw.
we came in, kick, that would have brought him down, okay, and what would you do after you brought him down?
Oh.
It may not be a logical
You should be
extension.
able to do multiple technique flow. The technique should be executed. Okay?
We misunderstood your
Yeah,
instructions.
okay. No, it's okay.
No, it's not big
but
deal.
It's just, again, I didn't say that, so you were okay within the parameters, but usually when you're doing multiple technique flow, you want to complete the technique
To its logical conclusion.
to its logical conclusion, so that you can see that you still have control of the attacker when you're finished. Okay? So, it's, you have to do that in the future, but you weren't aware of that, so you're okay. Yes, sir?
I think the first one, there was a great reinforcement of the principle you said. The technique you're most comfortable with and the last one used is I saw a couple things immediately implemented that he had just learned. He's a quick learner, and there are also the things that were, at the front of his mindset. So those were very
Yeah,
excellent.
also, on that lines of this, somebody was watching, it might have been Frank and Byron. They were getting to a point and they would say, okay, if you resist, then I'm going to go into that. So there's two sides to the coin. You have taken it to the logical conclusion, or as we're saying, if something's not working, how do you reverse it
Right.
to something else?
If-
So
if-
either way is fine.
Yeah, if you sense resistance, part of the purpose of the multiple technique flow is if you sense resistance is to be able to go into something else, to go in the direction the person wants to go, to help them. Okay. Yes, sir.
Tony Damigo and I both come from an Okinawan karate tradition, and one of the things that he and I have talked about in these sorts of things is when something isn't working for whatever reason, use a stun and distress.
It takes more than 2 seconds.
But we didn't want to do
Yeah, that's
that
kosher.
here because we thought everything was supposed to flow smoothly.
No, it's wide open. I mean, if you haul off and give them a good knee in the sun, yeah, that's gonna loosen them up a little bit, sure, that's legitimate.
That's why you say come up with your own routine.
Yeah.
And improvise. Do what you would normally do.
Right.
And that's fine.
And then he should react by going down.
Yeah.
Okay. Where he stimulated and it's really been done, and then you would continue on, yeah. The only thing that is required for multiple technique flow is that if the uke resists, you do something that will either counter that or go into another technique, but then uke also has to, if you're gonna, knee him, he has to then react for that so that you can continue on with what you were going to do.
Except that one is so painful.
I know that.
Well, you
Okay.
can
You don't actually
simulate it.
You don't have to, uke is, uke
is really gonna hurt.
We're human beings, and most of us are smart enough that we can learn from other people's experiences. So if you simulate the strike, if he was a good uke, it's like in freestyle kata tournaments, he would fake it or simulate losing his balance so that you could continue on with whatever you're doing. Okay, your uke has to some extent, when you're doing whatever you're doing, they have to cooperate with you, because otherwise they will get. It's hurt. It's a good way to learn self-protection. Okay, so, okay, I think we picked one more comment. Oh, you want to go next? I'll be using next. They get to go next. They have the
Thank you.
The brothers Korematsu.
Just don't get close when we get going.
The brothers.
Guys, move over here. Guys, move over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the other we're gonna do? Oh, well, any comments, brother? I'm sorry.
I like a finishing move at the end that's definitive.
Yeah, you're good finishing move.
We favor that one. It's
Yeah.
been our favorite for 10 years.
I know, it's one of your babies.
Yeah.
Okay. Next person, next sequence.
Cherry on top.
It's a walk away, but if he's struggling, it's a walk away.
Yeah.
Could we see that last one again, where you rolled them over? I'm not even sure I figured out what you were doing.
Okay, so if you're lying
Turn
that
90
way,
degrees.
Start from here.
so if you're lying here, I got them from here.
Okay.
I gotta keep it to roll them over, because otherwise I can get away with it.
Oh, I see, then you place it on the ground. Separate the shoulder.
Great technique. Nice. Very good.
Nice, yeah.
Very good.
Well,
Yeah, just for both of your gentlemen's flow, I like the speed practicality of it. It was very effective.
You managed to keep control of the limb all the way through.
Yeah, one of the things we were vocalizing was we were worried, I was worried at one point when, over here, I was attempting to make a transition, soften it up, but I still didn't like how much looseness there was in the meantime, trying to get it over, but interjecting some strikes can at least kind of take his chi away from what's going on there. I think, oh, and I have that little moment of respite.
yeah, actually, I liked that. If there was a transition, there was usually some sort of loosener, kind of a double tap.
Keep them occupied.
Keep them occupied while
That's
moving.
right.
That's nice.
Okay. Okay, next two volunteers. You guys,
Established our tradition.
you can key eye, but you can't talk.
Very nice, but I missed the first part. There was something you did.
We can redo this.
It's essentially to loosen this. I'm gonna fingers at the eyes.
Okay, that's.
As I do, I'm opening up, which rolls that wrist.
Oh, that's right, okay, I saw it. Now I see. Got it. Frank, you're very flexible.
And I was wondering the premise that each of these is failing, so I have to do something else. There's really not too much completion in this one here. Super boring.
Well, no, actually, I really liked that the sequence was very smooth, and I didn't see really any holes at all in the techniques. They flowed really smoothly one to the other for both of you. Very smooth.
That was a good logical sequence.
Yeah.
And they didn't necessarily look like they had failed techniques, they just good transition.
Yeah, good transition.
He had a lot of control on that. It helps having practice it, knowing where he's going to go, but you were really moving your feet, moving into it. Very efficient as well.
Next.
Logan is operating at a disadvantage today. Suzuki has a couple of cracked ribs.
But we can substitute.
Yeah,
and finger.
you can substitute.
Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you want, he and I have worked a little bit together, and we might go okay. I'm going to start out being the uke, if it's okay, and then we'll go the other way.
No, we can go first.
So you're saying you're going to go ahead and attack.
You're going to beat up your old man.
Happen at the same time.
You didn't give any promised toenail tips.
You were close though.
About to do a backflip over the top.
There's a technique I wanted to share that we reversed, and I didn't reverse it very well. So everything you talked about not knowing what I was going to do next and verbalizing, man, there was no talk going on in my head on that one. I had a plan for the very first move. He reversed his attack. I reversed my response, and it didn't happen right.
Right.
It went into something totally unexpected.
So what you're saying is that whole thing's ad lib.
That whole thing was like, yeah.
But that's the point,
Yes.
because you're gonna have to do that on the
Yeah.
street. You're gonna have to just do it as it comes, so.
So, this is what I was going to do right here. You see where his arm goes? Yeah. And then from there, I got some serious control. And on and on. That's how I was going to begin.
Okay. So we have this on video for child abuse, or?
We'll be calling CFS.
Yeah, Child Protective Services.
All right, Logan,
No,
you ready?
no, but I'll go on.
Okay.
You sure you don't want another Uge in there?
Logan,
No, I'm fine.
Logan just,
He's fine.
We're not worried about you.
I just go down real slow with you, that's all.
Okay, Logan,
Yes.
you want Byron, or you take? Sure. Byron's
Unless you guys.
Yeah,
We already have it worked out, I'll go with him.
Yeah,
I'll go
but,
with him.
but it's not worth the risk, and.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm a nice guy.
I'll go with Bradley, too.
Okay.
Good transition, good flow of techniques.
If you can make it work with Byron, you can make it work with
You weren't studying them beforehand, were you?
No,
Because you did it perfectly, and
That sounds like the
it
study.
went along. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're able to do this, your attacker should be irrelevant.
Yeah.
With practice, you'll get much smoother at it.
Yeah, but it was nicely done, you did a good job.
I don't know that I would have been able to do that as a green belt, so.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that was really
and
good.
your dad feels a lot better about it too.
Mark, would you mind just keeping us in frame? I'll try. You're not there yet.
Guys, move back just a little bit.
Good.
Too late.
Chris, nice. You basically, I believe, stuck with one extremity. Worked the extremity to death. We had, the good flow up and down the arm. It was done very smoothly. Thomas, you kind of worked back and forth a little bit, but it was a really good transition. Working up, particularly when the left hand wrist block or something like that, when you moved up to the
Neck.
and then you work down the other arm. That was a good transition, very nicely done. Very smooth transition, good control, both of you. Really well done.
Thomas, there was some visibility issues, and I couldn't see how you first submit, if you could do that.
Yeah.
Which
I was gonna say, I couldn't see a couple of those things.
You were
Yeah.
that way.
Looking the
You'll
other way.
reverse this
If
way.
you'll switch position, you'll get a better camera angle.
Okay.
Now I can see all the cookies.
He grunts and groans, and he's in such pain. And we're having a good time. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay,
I have a comment overall.
yes, go ahead.
All the black belts, not one of them KI'd, and I have an opinion why we don't, is that we're not responding, it's not a high enough threat level for us to really get involved in the technique, and it's just a habit that you develop. I mean, I'm not feeling threatened when I'm out here on the mat doing that, but it's something you really have to pay attention to and work.
Yeah, Ki, and any of you are like me, I very rarely Ki in class, and then we expect our students to Ki, and there's a very high discomfort level with Ki because if you really Ki, the intent is, well, there are a couple things that happen. Number one is the technique tends to be a lot more effective because when you Ki, you don't always have the same control. So there's a little conflict there. Also, when you Ki, it tends to attract attention, and so other people in the class will stop what they're doing. And so, you know, unless you condition your students to Ki and everybody ignores everybody else's Ki, it's kind of like going back to the guy who's got his iPod. When it becomes subconscious and you're just Ki-ing, that's probably the most effective way to have things, but it's really hard to get students to that point. I know in the junior high I was able to do it on occasion, and teachers in the classrooms around me would complain. And I'd say, close your doors. I mean, our doors were closed. And then hear it through the walls. It's difficult to get students to Ki because in our society you don't shout out loud in a room, you know, unless you're going to say the magic words such as fire or, you know, which you don't say. You know, so it's kind of like we're conditioned to do one thing and now we're expecting our students to do something else, which is to attract attention. And, you know, you go to, I'm sure you've seen it in class where one student really Ki, everybody all of a sudden looks at him. Okay? And that's what it's supposed to, that's one of the things that's supposed to happen. But it's a real distraction to other people that are trying to do techniques at the same time.
It kind of stops the class.
It stops the class. Yeah. So I don't know what the solution is. I think maybe part of the solution is for senseis when we do techniques and we need to Ki more, and hopefully it will slowly rub off.
I was going to say, I mean, I think there's probably an embarrassment factor from
Yes.
the folks that are in the lower ranks of, you know, I don't want to be the first off the boat here screaming my brains out at the center of the mat, so it's probably on, you know, folks like myself to just start doing it, and once it's accepted, because I don't care if they all stare at me, you know, catch on.
When I was taught junior high, I'd say to the kids, you have to realize this is the only class on this campus where you can scream your brains out and the teacher will be proud of you. And it was, you know, because junior high kids like to make noise. They are not quiet generally. They're very, they can be very boisterous. But when you ask them to be boisterous, it's very hard to have it happen. Yes, sir.
Just like accounting in different languages as we were warming up, we found after a while our students, you kind of get over the embarrassment. It became an internal joke on their part, but we then embraced it. They were Ki-ing using different letters of the alphabet to start, starting with A, B, and it kind of became an ongoing joke, but it got them Ki-ing and it made them feel a little bit more comfortable with it to start.
I mean, you know, the colleges don't have, not as many, but occasionally have Armenian kids, and I say, or Russian, and I say, well, use the Cyrillic alphabet. You know, which no one said you had to use A, B, C, D. I mean, you can use other alphabets too. Or Klingon, I don't know, but yes, sir.
Just a question as far as instruction goes. do you think a good compromise to that dilemma of drawing attention to, you know, of distracting people, your students' kiai is maybe having it like a standard thing to do during like warm-up throws, where everyone's kind of engaged and not really concentrating on a specific technique, and then the rest of the class is kind of, if it pops off here and there. I'm trying to think of logistics of that.
That's it, or you can have everyone, if you're doing throws where it's a numbered situation, I'll do that occasionally in college at the beginning of each semester. You know, number 5, they all throw their attacker, you know, each, me, san, chi, go. And at that point, you'd say, I say go, you ki-ai, and then all of them will do it, and they're all doing it at once. So it isn't seen as a weird behavior. So there are ways to do it, but even when we've done tournaments, it's really hard to get the competitors out there to ki and keep the judges away. And the students that usually ki in competition tend to do better because I'm facetiously saying they're keeping the judges away, but it's something.
You get the judge's attention.
You get the judge's attention. I was at a tournament back east in July. At the HAA convention, and there's very little. No, I didn't pick up that much ki. Okay. And I think the thing that disappointed me the most, except for Tom, and I think Lena was there, and I think maybe like 1 or 2 other students. 3 of them. Yeah. You could tell which students were his because they were doing different techniques.
Yeah.
Everyone else there, white all the way up to black, basically did the same techniques. We're doing the same techniques, and.
He comes here and learns some good stuff.
Right. So anyway, you know, yeah, the kiais do make a difference.
Can I show something where I thought about this as an effort? I need somebody to film it, but I won't actually do this technique. Frank, can you film that and Byron, can I borrow you for a second?
Maybe.
Can you aim this for me? The reason I thought of this is because we're usually thinking of the ki as a distraction, and sometimes it can be, sometimes it can't. It really depends on you know. But you can run out to your house and you hear bangs outside, and the first thing you do is kind of wince a little bit. So let me have Byron. Somehow we've gotten into this position for this throw, whatever it's going to be. Okay? I am so close to Byron's ear that if I ki, it becomes a physical pain for him. That is a weapon that you can use if you're aware of using the ki, and that's something you want to think about as more than just a distraction. You don't want to practice that in class because you'll never hear a little girl tell you, I love you, Daddy. But
And if you feel in reaction time as well, if he does that, I tend to lose 0.3, 0.4 seconds of what just happened. You know, it is a weird physical occurrence when you get that screamed at you.
Use your ki as a weapon. There are systems that actually drill that.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns about it? Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Danzan Brew system. They actually have, they call it Kimi no Kata or what, but they will actually have, because they teach everything lockstep, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but if you have their black belts come out and start with a particular technique, because they all learned a sequence, which is one thing Marc brought, which he does with his students, although not as strictly as Danzan Brew. They will all come out and go through the same sequence of moves, submission, and then going to other techniques. They will all do it lockstep.
And ki at the same
And
point.
ki at the same point. Okay, that's part of their training. Okay. Now, I don't know whether or not that's good. You do learn a sequence. But when the people came up here, you saw a lot of different things being done more dependent upon the situation. And your uke knowing what's going to happen anyway, and he's going to cooperate 100% whether or not you do it correctly.
And learning what we're doing here and introducing students to something like this, it's good to give them a routine to say, okay, I want you to do this, and then I want you to go into that, and go into that. So they just get the feel for moving from one technique to another without really having to think about it. You tell them they're going to do. And then, once they get comfortable with it, and they see that they can do that, then you tell them, okay, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, I want you to come up with something.
Figure it out on your
Make
own.
something up.
I like doing this, the sequence, just as a mnemonic, because they tend to focus on the ones that they're comfortable with, so when they're practicing on their own, they do this one small set that they do, and they forget the other techniques. So if I give them the sequence and say, run through that sequence a few times, now they've just practiced all 12 techniques that they're supposed to be working on. I don't care the rest of the time, but I only use it as a mnemonic.
So there are many ways you can teach this, there are many ways you can have students learn this. There's no, one set parameter. And one thing you'll find as a black belt is, number one, we all have different teaching styles. So we're going to teach the same thing differently. And secondly, students have different learning styles. And so in spite of your best efforts to have things go one way, they may go in often another direction. But you kind of have to give them the leeway as long as by the end they're where you want them to be. That's what's important. Okay. And it's part of it's having the trust in your students that they will ultimately be successful. Okay. And that doesn't a lot. That tends to be my approach. Because if they find, I figure if they can figure out something on their own and it works and it's legitimate, not only have they learned a good sequence, they've learned some skills, they've improved their self-confidence, they're more willing, the more, as a sensei, the more you can have a student acquire what we call self-learned or self-acquired confidence in what they're doing, the more risks they are willing to take to learn other things, because they realize that they can do it. Okay, and that applies to martial arts or anything. If you can do that with any of your students, to have them develop that self-confidence, you have done amazing things for that student that will apply to different parts of their life. Okay, risk-taking is an important element or skill to have. Okay, and I mean, there are legitimate risks and stupid risks, but by having this experience in controlled situations, they get better at selecting the good risks. Okay, and all of you know as adults there are risks to a lot of things, but most of the time we make good judgments, good judgment calls. So, and it's tremendously important for young people to develop that skill, because those are the ones that will tend to be successful in life, because they're willing to take risks and they're confident enough in themselves that ultimately they'll be okay. Okay, getting back to this. In dealing with multiple flow, Mark, you want to come and show the sequence you kind of have your...
Well, I just give some ideas, because, like I said, in teaching students this the first time, you want to give them a routine. So I want you to do this lock, and then I want you to go into that lock, and then I want you to go into that lock. So you actually have basically a kata that's worked out in a routine to have them go through, and they get comfortable with moving from one to the other. Then you do what we did, just put them in and say, okay, no set routine, you just do whatever it is you want to do. Then moving up into upper ranks, especially in the black belt level, if you're working with yourself, trying to work out things or practice things and working with higher ranking students, then what I've found is before you even start, think of a challenge that you want to accomplish. So I use Frank. So we'll say, okay, before we even start, what's my challenge? Okay, what my challenge is to start, okay, to start with his fingers here, okay, and work up.
Across the body.
and then I put the fingers on the other hand. I just work, start at one hand, work all the way across, end up with the fingers on the other hand. Okay? Then you challenge yourself again. Okay? All right? Let's come up with a handicap. Okay? My left arm is in a sling, so I can't use my left arm. Okay? So he punches. Okay? I come out. I got it. And I'll go through 3, 4, 5, 6 different things, but it can never use my other hand. And I have to do it all with one hand. So the point is, challenge yourself. Think of something that's going to be something you never tried before, and say, okay, let's see if we can do this, and just see if you can pull it off. And sometimes it'll take some practice. Go through it a few times, you're going to make mistakes, but then you're going to figure out, oh, I really can do that. So challenge yourself, and then challenge your students, and you find that they'll pick it up really quickly.
Mark?
Yes.
Could you do that very first one you did again?
No.
Similar with.
He made it up on the fly.
That's what I just, yeah. Okay, so remember the idea is to start here with the fingers, okay? And work whatever I can. I doubt that was the same thing I did the first time.
It was not.
It's pretty close.
Yeah, well,
Okay. All right, any other questions on that?
Okay.
So the idea is just think of something ahead of time, and then see if you can do it when you actually get out there on the mat.
Okay. Thomas, do you use something else, or do you want to?
Well, for the drills that I was talking about, I just take each of the worksheets and string them together in a way that they can practice them. And then like this, the kinds of things that we have them do is hand flow, which is their practice when do 10 techniques while I'm waiting for everybody else. It's quick. But I think you showed us something like this a few years back. Cross number square. Actually, much square. And this is just for them to practice their grips. And then they cycle through that. They can just keep going back and forth.
Right.
But to practice grips and transitions, and then they're supposed to do this when they have nothing else to do because they're waiting for somebody else.
Yeah, you do that. It's just a sitting position or with a partner. Just turn it over and just go through the sequence. Okay. Okay. Any other comments on this? Okay. It's got done a little faster than I anticipated, but that happens. So, pardon? Well, I don't know if we're going to have a lunch break. We're just going to let you start earlier.
Eat twice. We can just do those, come up with another 5 sequence.
You want to do another 5 sequence? Have 5 minutes to come up with something, and then 5 minutes to present?
Yeah, let's go eat.
I suggest that we use the camera capabilities to do the slow motion on something that you really like.
May I just share something?
Yeah.
This is an entirely new concept to me, and I absolutely love it.
And I'm really thrilled because I got 14 students back home I can work with and my son, and we can just spend hours and hours working just this. And it's very valuable. I can see it tremendous amount of value in this.
The value of it in practicing, even if you're working through a sequence, is that they learn that one thing can lead to another, and they learn how it really is an excellent way of having them learn how the human body, not their own body, but how the other person's body moves in reaction to certain techniques or movements by you. Okay? And once you get that done, that goes back to location, location, location. Okay? I've tried to do everything today, kind of like work on that and tying up with Chris at the end. It's you have to know what you're, and you will eventually learn this in your mind, that if you do certain things to your attacker, they are going to react in either A, B, C, or D, or maybe just A. And so all this really is not all of this is not really rocket science. Okay, it's pretty basic once you, everything is basic once you get it down. But it's once they get these concepts of how the body moves, and that goes into kinesiology and stuff like that, learning the art and practicing the art becomes an entirely different thing. It's not just learn hand throw and go through the motions. Because they realize how the person's body is moving and how their body is moving, then you can control your environment. You know where they're going to land. You know how their extremities are going to be. And then you can, it becomes an automatic plan B. What are you going to do from that point? And you'll know that, but it just is something that requires some practice.
And the main thing I try to stress to my students is not only the learning the body movement, but also realizing that everything is connected. When everything is connected. So if you're trying to do something with fingers and it's not working, well, look what's right there. There's thumb. Okay, move up to the wrist, move up to the elbow, shoulder. Everything is connected. So when you're trying to do something and it's not working, don't get frustrated and keep trying to do that. If it's not working, you're just beating your head against the wall. Move up to something else. It's right there. It's only an inch or two away. That there's another whole set of opportunities right there waiting for you to take advantage of.
It's really disarming.
Or disarming.
Disfingering.
Ooh, bad humor. Anyway, I think we're okay. Tachosa, Kioske, Chuck, second MC. Okay, we're going to do a shifting gears because I brought the stealth weapon stuff today, and I didn't bring the stuff for empty hand to weapons. I left the jujitsu at home, left the handles at home. Some of the nicer toys you need for that conversion. So we're going to do stealth weapons. Okay. And
don't be so confused. Okay, because you go backwards.
He's already confused.
I'm easily confused.
Be kind.
We'll up the.
He has a very orderly
I'm
world.
also easily confused. And I actually don't know how long this is going to take, other than depending on what stuff you may have lying around in your e-bags, etc., that you can use to try some of this stuff. But and we don't.
Stealth.
No, you can't use that knife.
I not want to see what's in the bottom of the Show me the
And just in terms of general guidelines, and this is assuming you're in your own home or someplace else, and you ideally do not want to use anything on your attacker that they can easily use on you. Okay, so if you're at home and you decide to put your knife to defend yourself, but you really have some issues about stabbing a person or cutting a person, okay, odds are you're not going to cut or stab them, and they will take the knife away from you and use it on you. So to some extent, you don't want to use stuff that can inflict bodily harm on you. Okay, because that's like pointing a gun at someone, but to realize you're never going to shoot them, and so they take the gun away from you and shoot you with your gun. Okay, so that's the kind of the approach I'm taking. And unfortunately, we don't have any young ladies with us, and none of you are cross-dressers. So the purse is out, or the man bag.
Merce, please.
The verse, okay. Just a couple comments. Women do carry a lot of neat stuff in their purses. If they carry, just to mention, if they carry a comb, you know, if you're a significant other, if you want to make your purse dangerous, rather than a comb, you get one comb that has a handle on it. Make sure it's a pointed handle, or just, I've seen some where it's half comb, and the other half is a thin steel shaft.
Rat tail.
Okay, a toothpick, you know, to do their hair, and that works great as a stabbing weapon. If you have, if you can get your significant other, rather than to use like lipstick containers that are made of, have them switch to metal. Same thing for compact ones to put the face on. Instead of plastic, go to metal, because you can do damage with those things. You take the lipstick cap and you put it between two fingers. You just haul off and go after the guy's cheek. One of his cheeks on his head, not the other end. And
Just like a big hole.
you get a whole meat
Get a
hole
DNA sample.
What? And you can get a DNA sample. And some of this stuff is stuff I picked up from Cal Brocious and Kitsugo. He actually had a girl who was, some guy in a bar was trying to pick her up. And so she went through the routine and got where, you know, she gets out her compact to make her face prettier. And the guy's getting closer and closer. And she turns it around and snaps it shut on his lips. Which cut his lips rather deeply. And she got a sample of his DNA, and that kind of turns him off to the rest of the evening. Women carry perfume, they carry all sorts of little sprays, okay? And anything you're going to throw, any type of liquid, ideally you want to go either into your assailant's eyes or their mouth, okay? Either one is fine. These are all meant to be distractions rather than quote-unquote effective weapons. Okay. If you get the opportunity, okay, once you've done one of these things just to distract the person, unless you're going to go after them physically, which is not necessarily the smartest thing to do, is to have an escape route and run. Okay, because as soon as they get their acts back together, and get the shaving cream out of their mouth, they're gonna come after you. I mean, shaving cream is neat because it'll put out a good stream, you know, if you don't happen to have pepper spray with you. Pepper spray, by the way, you want to make sure you have the alcohol base, not the water base. Most law enforcement agencies are prohibited from using alcohol base because they've been sued. Because the idiot, as they sprayed, had a cigarette in their mouth. And so they kind of get everything singed. And you go for a screen rather than a spray, because with pepper spray, there's a tendency for backdraft. And with a spray, you have to be more careful about the backdraft. With a screen, you don't have to, and the screen is it's a narrower target, but you can go further away with it. Okay.
And why the difference? What's the difference between the alcohol and the water base?
Water base won't ignite.
So you don't create a burning man.
You know,
Well, I thought you said we should try to get alcohol.
no, you want to try and get the alcohol base.
But law enforcement here is prohibited because of a lawsuit.
Right. See,
Because
alcohol will absorb into the skin
That's what I
faster.
wanted, okay.
Right.
That's what I'm curious.
And
As a civilian, you can get away with more.
right. Yeah.
I didn't know that was what it was.
Yeah, it's the alcohol and whatever is carried with it absorbs faster into the skin or eyes than water-based does. That's why you prefer alcohol, okay?
And with the pepper spray, you don't want to try to aim for the eyes because it's too hard to judge.
Right.
So you want to do a figure eight pattern, and then they'll spray all over them.
Yeah.
It'll get his
And if you
eyes.
get
Try to
the
aim for his eyes, you'll never miss.
Yeah, you also, if you get the one that has the dye in it, that's kind of cute.
So they're purple and screaming.
It's purple and screaming.
And on fire.
That's a visual, isn't it?
But,
My sensei in Virginia said that the best way to use the mace is scream like you said.
Yeah.
But he said, cover your eyes a little bit like this and then give them the sign of the cross. Because you can't tell if they're moving horizontally, you'll get their eyes one way or the other.
yeah,
So it's a figure eight pattern or something like that. So
It'll
you're not
do-
just
yeah.
trying to aim.
Cool on it.
somebody else. Okay, anyway, so, the other thing is, in terms of protecting, you're gonna have like pepper spray, or, you know, you have Kubutan, well, we'll say keychain, because Kubutans are felony possession in California, unless they have a key on it, then it becomes a keychain.
They're illegal in California?
Yes, if you just have a Kubutan by itself, it's illegal. If you put a key on it,
Is it really a felony?
Weapon, the item you use as a weapon is a felony.
It is, it's a felony if you try to get on an airplane with it.
yeah. Now, because I've got 3 handcuff keys on here, this is no longer felony
handcuff
possession,
keys.
okay? Now it's a keychain. And their question is, what are you doing with handcuff keys on here? And see, then it gets,
What are
well,
you
it's
doing
got
with
keys.
keys on?
Oh, you're okay, you're okay. Okay, yes. Well, yes,
200 if I could show this.
is this the pen?
Steel shaft,
Yes.
6 for $4 at Office Depot. It's the Zebra brand. Click it and feel how sharp that is. That's a ballpoint pen.
Yeah, it is.
That is the sharpest
It's-
ballpoint pen I have ever found.
Yeah, I mean,
Harvested.
And
it's a
they'll
T-ball,
leave it
T-ball jotter. Who makes that? It's a stainless steel ballpoint pen. I got my first one when I was in college. They're great pens. You can use them for almost anything. They're a great weapon. They don't bend. They weren't made by Slurpee. But it's amazing the stuff you can actually get away with carrying. It's really important, just to sidetrack here, if you're ever getting on a plane, I had one student who, they were taking stuff away from him, and I guess it started out with his belt because he had a concealed knife, you know, the kind that has a concealed knife in the belt. Well, there are some people that are really warped. And then he opened his mouth and said, I don't need any weapons to defend myself with. He did not make it on the plane. Okay, so you really have to be careful. I have a silver boot on my other keychain, my real keychain, which was given to me as a gift. Okay? It's gone through. This will cut.
Can you show that?
It's, I mean, I've had, you know, airport security take out the keys and look at it and say, what is this? And I say, it's a silver boot.
Then you put y'all at the end.
And they say, okay, here are your keys. And
My lucky charm.
it's amazing what you can carry. And keys, by the way, ones are the keys. Keys like this are okay if you want to swipe across the person's face, but really effective. You either want them on O-rings or on a chain, so you can get them in between your fingers, and you don't hit with this, you rake across the face with it. Okay. And backhand is always better than forehand. Okay. And these keys are perfectly legal to carry. And I always suggest so far. And I always, although now starting this Saturday, if you rent 5 airline tickets, you have to give your age and sex now, which I actually think is a good thing, because There have been some people that have, you know, the little baby has the same name as some 50-year-old terrorist, and they don't put the baby on the airline because he's a terrorist. And someone hasn't gotten the concept, you know, he's going to throw up his Gerber. But in any case, if you have a few keys on here, okay, you don't want to just have one or two keys. You want to have a group so you can get a grip on this thing, okay? And do that. But anyway, Pt1, as long as you have keys on, you're okay. Okay. Your belt. Anyone have a pair of pants here that has? Now, using your belt, and unfortunately this is mostly lecture, okay, and we'll take some other ideas. Belt is an excellent weapon, okay, as long as you can, and I actually like the ones that are webbed because they have the additional advantage. I mean, if you can take your belt off and you swing it, okay, it's a great weapon. If you can switch ends, it's even a better weapon. Okay? Because now you've got, and again, you're trying to go for their face, and this end hits, and some of these belt buckles, particularly if you're from Colorado or Texas,
And the rodeo champion.
and the rodeo champion, and you've got these belt buckles that are like
Nathan's on drive-through.
a foot wide, you know, they weigh like 30 pounds.
Manhole covers.
Manhole covers. Belt is an extremely good weapon, okay? Its only downside is, let me borrow Byron here. Okay, and the reason you want, if you can, is I tend to travel, when I travel, I'll travel with a webbed one, where the little leather is webbed, okay? Is because I can use, and how many of you have belts here, by the way? If not, we can use D-belts. But you can use it to hit with, okay, which we won't have you do here because we will not appreciate it, especially if it's the other end. Okay, but he can come in with a hit, and you can simply block, trap, okay, and then you're ready to do whatever throw you want to do. Okay, if you're going to wrap, we're going to have you do this. If you wrap counterclockwise, you can't throw the person that way. You have to take them around this way and throw them. Okay, if you go the other way, he hits it, and you wrap him clockwise. Okay. Then you have to take them forward, ideally, okay? Although it doesn't work as well, okay? What's nice about the webbed one is once you get this person down, okay, and trapped, and you bring him down, you take him over onto here. See, I can latch this up here fairly easily. It's almost like rope techniques, okay? Except there are no holes here. Oh my God, what do I do? I can't get a hole, punch it. Okay, and with the webbed belt, you can get your hole wherever you want it. That comment, don't you? Okay.
Too late.
And then with the webbed belt, okay, once you have one trapped in there and stuck, then you can bring the other hand around, wrap it in, okay, get these arms, get your both arms up so one's under the other. Okay, so we can put one here. And you get the other hand in here, and then slip that in through the belt hook, okay, in the hole you've just created, and you've got a pretty good handcuff here, okay, and he's set, okay. It's a great fake it handcuff, because he's not going to get out of it, okay.
And feels like a total idiot.
But the point is, you have to lock one hand up into it before you do the other. Because if you do two, there's going to be some slip room in there. Some word has two letters, CS. You have, what do we say? You have crotch space, and he can get out. Okay. So what we're going to, how many of you have belts here? Okay, 1, 2. Okay, we've got some D belts you do. So what I'm going to have you do, okay, is we're going to have you do the lock, the line and take them down. We're not going to worry about this part because, you know, maybe next time I'll get smart. So everybody, make sure you have a webbed belt. You're going to say webbed belt. What's a webbed belt? Okay. Okay. And we're going to have you do. He's just going to come in with a hit. and you've taken this once or twice, and, you know, he's not reacting to that, he's not staying away from you, or he's back there, and you've done this, and he still advances, and he's going to, so all I want you to do is you're going to block. Okay, now some people say block with the belt. Okay, this is strong, block with belt. The problem with block with belt is belt bends. Okay, so I prefer to block with the arm. Okay, and then all I have to do is wrap around, and I'm set. If you're going to block, you got to block, and the belt just won't do it. A chain won't do it. Okay, a chain will bend as well. Okay, and then once you get this, wrap it around, so you at least get one. If you've got enough belts so you can do it twice, so much the better. Okay, then all you're going to do is the same thing as for a hand throw. Just going to pivot back, pivot around, bring it around. Okay, got it here. Now from this position, okay, I'm not going to run. I'm going to roll them over. Okay, bring this up into an arm lock. Turn your head the other way, sir, to get the other arm out. Thank you, sir. Okay, and going to bring this down, because this blocks his arm. Hook it up. You have to tie a knot of some sort with a G-belt. Okay, hook this up, and then go for the other arm. This is almost like see, we're going to have problems here. Not too much. Okay, and then tie a knot. I'm running out of belt here. Okay, and you're set with him. With a gi belt, you have a little more rope to play with. Okay, so does anyone need to see the technique? This is probably the, well, you're going to do some other stuff. It's not really going to be technique. Okay, very good.
Just leave Byron there in the corner.
No, I won't do that.
Byron will just do it.
My Seki would do that with. Yummy. Yeah, Jimmy's belts. Okay, there you go. We're having a couple problems here, and since my rule is when I see 2 or 3 people making the same mistakes, it's usually the sensei who's screwed up. Right. Students. Let me borrow Mr. Joe again. Okay, he's going to come in. Okay, I'm going to block. Okay? Okay. This hand is going to come around once, twice. You have to do it twice, because if you only do it once, depending on what I do, this is, you have a 50-50 chance of this coming undone. Because you really, that's all there is there. So you want to go around a second time. It's a 1-2-1. Okay, now from here, okay, and you took him over, okay, you went over your hip, and you did this, and, oh, God, is a sucker. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do this one. Okay? Now, the other thing is, once you get to here, okay, what you did was you came around this way, and what you're doing is by coming around this way, you're undoing it again. So what happens is that you're going to take, keeping at least 2 wraps on this person is critical. So rather than moving your arm this way, is you want to bring it counterclockwise as you step over, and what happens is this will wrap an additional time just by his movement. Okay, now, so we're going to bring him over, and I think I've got him fairly well tracked here now. Now, the other nice thing is now I can, this is just situational awareness, I've got him, I'm fairly secure now. Gee, his hand is turning in color. Okay, I'm going to bring this behind his back, okay? I'm going to bring the other hand. Okay, it's more, you've got to watch your wraps. Okay, and that's the only critical thing with a belt, is you need to make sure that when you turn his arm one way or the other, that rather than unwrapping, it wraps more. Okay, and 2 or 3 of you were having that problem.
And there's also the question of which hand goes around.
Yeah, I will usually do. If
Well,
I'm not-
there's a rule of thumb. When you go to the inside, you're blocking with your left.
Yeah.
Then whichever arm
is blocking is the one that's gonna
Rotate.
slip around. If you go to the outside and block, same thing, it's the one that's on, it's the- whichever arm you're blocking
Yeah,
with,
that's
is the one that's
the one
gonna
that can
wrap.
wrap. The other end is gonna end up, you're gonna get trapped in your own rope. Okay, now from here, you can try and get his other hand, but we don't really have too much to do here. We can't do much in the confines of the class. If it wasn't in class, I could set them up. I'd probably have to loosen them up to something. I'd really have to jerk this up and give him some grief, and then get the other hand up here. It would be extremely tight for him. Okay, but you see, this is fairly secure. Okay.
Tied around his neck.
I could tighten it to his belt.
Yes.
Okay, but what if he's not wearing a belt?
Tie it to his.
Anyone? No, not moving. That's gonna be hard to do. Anyway.
Remember what happened, let me think this over before I come back to tell you.
Okay, so, okay, take, hand color's coming back. Take your time with this. Once you get the concept, it's easy. But you just gotta make sure that whatever movements you make, whatever way you turn his arm or wrist for whatever technique that you're doing, that you do not unwrap anything. Okay, you always add to it.
Sorry, I started to play with clove hitches, I'm a rock climber, so
Okay.
there's all kinds of little variables you can do with the knots
Okay,
and things
yeah.
like that.
And clove hitches are really good in case you find any cloves as you're climbing.
Absolutely.
Okay, because they
Say,
make a
Kirby,
really great spice.
It seems to me combining multiple flow technique with what is going on here, playing devil's advocate, somebody hauls off and throws a punch and then retracts it as you're wrapping, then he may also retract that belt from you as well. And then you got a push and pull match with a belt, you're gonna need to go into a technique like that.
Well, if, yeah, we get that done. Okay, I don't want to get hung up here for, if he comes in here and he retracts, okay, you really have to retract with him. You have to, it's part of, you always go in the direction your attacker wants to, and if he wants to retract, you retract, you go with him.
Which means now you're gonna be going into a different technique perhaps?
You have to see the same technique.
No, same technique, same for,
You just go in a different direction.
yeah.
Go in a different direction.
Different starting point.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're still gonna continue that wrap. You don't want to have this hanging out here like this, because now he's gonna haul off with his other hand or something of that sort. And then you've got to try and do this, and it's extended and it's useless. Okay, unless you can quickly get him in the face. Okay, and that's just a distraction.
And if he grabs the belt, that's even better.
That's even better.
He's helping you.
Thanks.
Yeah, because if I
I
come
can get that
around
hand
here,
wrapped in
okay,
there.
and he pulls back and grabs the belt, okay, fine. He wants to grab the belt, grab the belt. Okay. Now I still have, okay, you always help this person, okay? And I'll still do the same technique. Take him over, notice I'm twisting, because you don't want to leave it open, and twisting will turn him around. He gets a second award for the day. Now we do, so you don't feel bad. Every time we have class, every night, the phone gets hit. Sometimes the whole thing comes out off the wall, and then everybody applauds. But no one ever does this intentionally. Okay. Okay, so I want you to try this again. Okay?
All right.
Then we'll show you what
Bring your arm around.
That read is all right.
It allows you to hold anywhere by taking the belt hook and slipping it through the belt. You'll find that this stuff is a lot easier to do. Okay. The only problem in using your belt for self-defense is that if your belt is necessary to hold your pants up, there are some consequences you have to be willing to deal with. Okay? Just you won't
Eat
move
another
around.
lunch like we had today, 3 days in a row, and you won't have any problem.
Yeah, so it's just, again, it's situational awareness. If the belt is holding the pants up, you can't use the belt. Make sure you got neat undies on. Clean.
Hard on.
Okay, anyhow, okay, moving right along. If you're at home, okay, if you're in the shower or gotten out, you have a towel. I don't know what part you plan to cover when you answer the door.
Scareways just been anything.
But anyway, okay, but I mean, who do I want to borrow here?
Have you accepted Jesus? Oh, never mind.
Okay, okay, now, you might think, well, snap it at the person, keep them away. But that really, what happens is, you don't want to do anything you can that's interpreted as high threat. Okay? This is an act of violence against this person. This, on the other hand, is not. Okay? So sometimes if you throw a belt or towel or something at them, they'll try and catch it. Okay, so now you've occupied their hands. Okay, so it's a distraction. Okay, what are they going to do with the wet towel? I don't know. Okay, they'll probably come after you, but if you've gotten that half-second or 1 second lead, you now have a lead. Or if they're worried putting it in their hands, and you want to do some self-defense technique on them, you can. Such as slam the door in their face, or smash their foot or something, or kick them in the groin. That's your opening, okay? Because now they've got this towel, what am I going to do with this towel? Okay? The same thing occurs is if you have stuff right here. See, he caught it. It's a natural reaction. If, on the other hand, I had gone and thrown it at him, he'd either try and catch it or try and knock it out of the way. But you're working with human nature. What else? He wants to throw out things. Okay. You can just toss stuff at a person, and they will normally try and catch it. Okay. Or is it
Just keep them occupied.
Yeah. Until it goes. You stand there in the pantry and just keep. No, you can't keep doing this. But all I'm trying to stress is, if you throw something at a person, they're going to duck, they're going to move out of the way, they're going to want to come after you. If you toss it at them, the general reaction is going to be they're going to want to catch it. And that occupies their hands. Okay? Is it stupid? Yes. Okay? But here. I mean, people do this. They catch stuff. Logan.
There's a guy who had the gun pointed towards him, and he put his hand in its way, and the guy tried to look around.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing what people do.
True story.
I mean, logic, you have to realize logic doesn't work from their perspective, but it can work from your perspective. Okay, so rather than trying to throw it, I mean, if you got, what else you got in here? Got some plastic utensils here. They'll still count.
How many do you have?
3?
7. Definitely 7.
And
Three,
if you want to try some of this stuff with each other, here we got, unfortunately, these are the only plastic utensils I've brought. But if you want to grab all 6 or 7 and toss them at the person that's looking at you, see what happens. Okay, they're not going to try and block them out of the way. They're going to try and catch them. Okay. On the other hand,
Quit turning your back to me.
Run.
a can of soup. This is something different. This has got some weight behind it. And this you're going to aim for. Okay. You want, and this close, you're going to, upper body head is what you're after. And it's unlikely they're going to pick it up and throw it back at you.
Probably won't be able to.
They may not be able to, even if it misses. They're not going to go running after a can of whatever, something that's rolling away. Okay? They're going to be coming after you, not the soup. Okay? So again,
You've got a nice pop top on that comes off really quick and really sharp.
pull the top off. And just come in and go side of the neck is cool.
Throw the suit in his face first.
What?
Throw the suit in his face first.
Well, see, if it's,
It's cream of mushroom.
it's pure mushroom, it's, you know, and it's not gonna go anywhere, okay? You can use this stuff as glue.
So you gotta get a good chicken noodle.
Chicken noodle soup, something that's loose, you can throw it in their face, okay? But a can, and not all of them have the little pull tabs, where you can pull the tab and you say, this goes off in 10 seconds, you better start running. I mean, you know. What else we got in here? Got a squeeze bottle, okay? You go for the face, okay? Regardless of what it is, okay? Whether it's food, whether it's cleaning solvent, whether it's shaving cream, whatever it is, you go for their face, okay? And you squirt it. Even if it's ketchup or ketchup, okay? Even if it's upside down for dyslexic people who stand on their head. Okay, you squirt. If it's in a squeeze bottle, you squirt it. Okay, what else we got here? I had you can sit down, unless you want to keep standing. I had when I was a little kid, we stayed at someone's house up in Seattle. And her grandmother, whenever she was upset, she'd get this big wooden spoon, wide thing, and, you know, she'd come after us with that sucker. She never hit us in the head. She didn't want to leave marks. But she'd give you one really good whack on the rear, and that would make an impression. But if you think of, you know, some utensils have a certain amount of flexibility to them, and that's good. Because if this person comes at you and you want to whack at them, this isn't good. They're unlikely to come at you with this as a weapon. But this will cause a lot of pain. Okay? Spatulas are great. Okay? But you can hit them in the face with this. You can hit them in the arm. Okay? Has almost the same effect as a, I forgot what that spring thing is police use. An asp. Yeah. I have one of those too. Yeah.
Need it?
No, but this has almost the same effect because it has that flexibility, enough flexibility to it. Again, it's a utensil that you want. Do not get out a two-pronged fork, because that most likely can be used against you. Okay, and it's really hard to say to a person, if someone is in your house and they're coming to attack you, don't use anything that can be used against you, because you really don't have the time to, gee, will this or won't this? It's too late. Okay. So it's just something to be aware of.
Was there one time and we were doing this many years ago? I think it was with you, and we had the flip burgers with on the grill, and we were doing that, and somebody forgot to block, and they ended up with the diamond patterns.
Yeah,
inside of their face.
Yeah, I mean, it does leave an impression. Okay. And actually, something that has openings in it will hurt more than something that doesn't.
It gets there faster.
But yeah, it gets there faster, and there are more edges to it. Okay, so it's just something to be aware of. If we can have you try this, we're very safe, I think, at this point. If you happen to have groceries or anything, let me borrow someone else. Who wants to stand up for this?
It doesn't involve ribs, I'll do it.
Pardon?
It doesn't involve ribs, I'll do it.
No, I won't do anything. Oh, you're going to do it? Okay, fine. Okay. I recommend paper bags over plastic bags. It has nothing to do with the ecology and saving the plastic for other stuff, you know, and landfills and all that other good stuff. Paper bags you can hold in your arms, okay? And if you're confronted by this person, okay, all you really have to do is say, oh. And then, okay, what you've done, first of all, is you've created a barrier that he's got to get around, okay? Number two, is they're empty boxes. Okay, I didn't want anything heavy. Okay, you've got, okay. Thank God. And he's, you know, this will usually cause a person to take a couple steps back. And if there's stuff that's breakable there at glass and they get on them. And again, all of these are distractions that will work fairly effectively. Okay. There's someone who's ever a bagger. Have you ever gone to the supermarkets now? Most of the kids today that do the bagging, they're called grocery relocation specialists, and they have no idea that the tomatoes and bananas do not go at the bottom of the bag with the canned goods on top. Okay, and
It's the new man.
it's a new man, and it's, I mean, to me it's really scary because there's a certain amount of logic that goes into bagging groceries. But all you're trying to do here is create a series of distractions, okay, that allows you to step back. Verbalization is very important, okay, particularly if you are in a place where if there are no other people around, it doesn't matter what you say, but if you're in a grocery store or something like this, and this isn't too hard for guys, but women have a lot of hang-ups on it. You need, if this guy is threatening you or wants you to go with him or what have you, you need to be as verbally abusive as you can get. Okay, you don't want to leave the primary scene of the crime. Okay, you want to use every word that your parents told you never to use in public as often as you can, as loudly as you can, because it's going to attract an audience. Okay, so you've created a distraction, you've created an audience. Okay, you've got witnesses. Okay, and out of all that, there may be one or two people who are willing to help you. Or they've got on their cell phone, this is really cool, I'm going to record this, okay, because, you know, and then you've got all this information in addition. So what we're going to have you do, okay, one last thing, we can probably try it, although I didn't bring it up. A broom or a mop is really good, okay, and it really can't be used as a weapon against you. Okay, for example, who wants to be a volunteer for this? Okay. Well, no, I don't want to use it for safety. I mean, fire. Okay. Oh, we'll use Chris. I mean, Thomas. Okay. Okay.
I stand up and.
I'm sorry. See, this. You don't even have to touch a person. They don't want that into the broom. Okay. And you can touch it. It's amazing how people. You know, and if they try and get by it, I mean, this is, again, you're working off of people's natural reactions. Okay, if you don't want to use that end, okay, you're here, you can use it as a thrusting weapon. Okay, don't hit. That's not going to do anything, and it'll probably break the broom. Okay, but if you want to come in as a thrusting weapon, okay, you can use it as a thrusting weapon. Okay, so we got one broom here. I don't know if there are any other brooms in there, but if there's another broom there, we can use that as well. Okay, dustpan is great. Now you're an armed samurai. Okay.
I don't even want to know.
Because this you can hit people with, and you can slice with. Okay. You can hit down with them. On their body, this isn't going to do much of anything. Okay. But you get from the neck, face, and head, this can do some serious damage. Okay. So just if you're going to use it, be careful. Okay. It's got corners.
Oh, baby.
Here, I'll come in the yard and tell you that I'll shoot you.
Okay.
This preceded the trident and net sweeping one.
Yes. Yeah, trident and the net. All right. Okay. So, and even if you hold this in front of their face, I mean, it's like if you take an umbrella and just open it up in front of someone's face, it totally disorients them because they can't see anything. Okay. So, we've got these. No.
That's a road rage.
That'll work.
Come on.
We use that when we have pros around here. Anyway, toothbrush. Toothbrush is similar to, but toothbrush is legal. So you can keep a toothbrush in your pocket, probably make it through airport security with it, and it's like a ballpoint, you got a Kubotan here, okay? And this is now an effective weapon, okay? All the way to the extent, this is a cheap 99-cent toothbrush. I wanted to see if it worked. Let me borrow Mark here. If it does, you can take this around or use a ballpoint pen. Some people, or you can use a wooden knife here if you want to. For a hit, if he's going to come in a hit, you trap, hook on, and yeah, we can bring him down with it. Okay. We can come back and smash him with it, stick it up his nose. And brush his teeth. Okay, so, you can play with this, okay? It's a little different, okay? The point is, when you get home, just look around and be amazed at what you can find in your house that is legal, non-lethal. It can be used effectively, okay? You can't get in trouble for using it. Okay, baseball bats do not count. Okay, okay.
Unless you're at a ball game.
And axe handles do not count. Okay, because most people don't have axe handles sitting around their house or in the back. By the way, if you keep a baseball bat in your car, make sure you also have a ball and glove with it. Really, I mean, this is stupid little stuff. Because that will make the difference between it being a weapon and you're actually engaged in the sport. Okay,
I know a guy in Burbank that he got a citation from the police because he'd walk his dogs, but he'd carry a golf club with him. And the police stopped him and said, "Why do you have a golf club?" And he said, "To beat off any attackers or stray dogs." They gave him a citation for carrying his weapon.
But if he had 2 balls.
We're not going to
No, if he had just said, well, I'm going down to the driving range,
he would have been on the field.
I'm looking for my golf ball.
yes. Now, look, I hit him the other day, and I heard a crashing noise, but I don't know where they went.
Yeah.
Playing urban golf.
So anyway, sometimes it's not what you say. What is what you say, okay? But you need to create, for example, if you're a martial artist and have martial arts weapons in your vehicle, you make sure they're in the trunk, in a bag. If you can put a lock on the bag, you put a lock on the bag, because you need to establish that they're not easily accessible. If they're on the right front seat and the bag is open, you got problems.
And declare them. Right after 9/11, I had to give a lecture at Fort Myer that some people here know about. And they had imposed some fairly heavy security there. It was the Potomac Geophysical Society. And so when we came in, I declared that I had a Kubotan, and I declared that I had an ASP, an ASP. That was fine. They said, okay, we'll take that, we'll give that back to you when we finish. Now you need to get out of the car, we need to search it. So we got out of the car, and this corporal opened up the trunk, and kind of goes, oh, like that in the trunk. And then Louise, who was with me, my wife, says, who was here 2 years ago, said, oh, I forgot my samurai sword. And it was absolutely hilarious to see the look on the faces of these 3, of the sergeant and the 2 corporals. This 55-year-old woman missing her samurai sword. But yeah, it was in the trunk. But they were going to keep it
Nice
because it wasn't declared.
Right. Yeah, you have to be, you don't want to, years ago I got pulled over and I was asked, and I said, yes, this is what I told the police officer, this is what I have in, and actually my wallet was in my D-bag. I said, I have my wallet in with my driver's license, but also in there is, 2 rubber guns, some wooden knives, there's a couple, 1 or 2 real knives in there. There's, I just told him whatever was there. I said, either I can get my wallet out, or you can get another. I said, I'll wait. You can get another officer here, and one of you can get the wallet out. Either one is fine with me. And he didn't want to stick around, so he asked me to. He stepped back from the car with his hand on his gun, which Well, I expected that would be the rational thing for him to do, and I got out my wallet. Okay? But you really, if you're in a situation like that, you really have to declare it, because you don't want to surprise them. They get all upset. Okay?
I had the same situation when I was traveling back and forth from Seattle to Vancouver, BC, to do some training. Every time I went through customs, what do you got in the car? Well, I've been through training, and I got this in the car. And most of the time, they just go on through.
Yeah.
Of course, this was pre-9/11.
Right. I mean, the first time I went to Canada, I did the stupid thing, we filled out a little card. I said I was coming up there to do a seminar, so I was up there for business. So they hung me up in customs, and they didn't get to me until 1:30 in the morning. And the guy was a new customs agent. The previous person he interviewed was a lady who had been hired by the Canadian government to come up to write an article on the ease of travel. And she read him the riot act. And I figured it's 1:30 in the morning. I do not want to aggravate this guy anymore. So, I told him what I was doing. He says, you have to get a permit. I said, when can I get a permit? He said, you can't do that till Monday. I said, I'm leaving on Sunday. And so that put him in kind of an enigma. And so he says, well, next time you come up here on business, get a permit first. And he says, but what's in the box? I said, a bunch of coupons. So at 2 o'clock in the morning, they got all their immigration people ended up doing a demo on use of the coupon in the airport. And then they let me go. I mean, it's amazing what situations you can get into if you're just open and upfront. Okay, and that's kind of a sidetrack issue, but you do have to. Particularly when you go in another country, you do not have any civil rights. Okay, and you have to realize that. Okay. What else did I want to cover? Okay, one last thing. This is not going to get personal. I'm just doing this because I don't want to have to go wash my hands afterwards. Oh my God, what is he going to do? Okay, now, most of you, I'm only doing this. These are This is what you have to do when you're defending. Just give me a second, sir. Let me get my gloves on before I defend myself.
Blow air to wrist. That's a good idea.
Anyway, so
He's an EMT.
there is this old advertisement they used to have for the LA Times that it all comes together in the Times. Okay? And the reason you can do this with any magazine or newspaper, the problem with newspapers is because the ink really doesn't dry too well on newspapers. If you do this, you will get ink all over your hands, then it gets on your clothes. Okay, so what you want to do is roll up your newspaper. Okay, and now you can use this for anything. You can use it as a club. Okay, you can use it. We borrow a marker.
Excellent for dogs. It's excellent for very aggressive dogs.
To hit him? Yeah.
Good scout swatting the snout and
Yeah.
stick it in his face and he'll bite on that.
Works on kids too.
Same technique. I did not work kids.
Anyway, so you can
That's why I've only got
take,
five.
this is good for maybe one or two techniques, so be aware. So if he blocks, or hits, and you come in and do this number, you will get one or two techniques off of it, and then it's gonna bend and become useless, okay? But then what you do is, once that's done, you just grab it and throw it in his face, and hopefully it'll fly apart. And then he's worrying about all these pieces of newspaper.
Or you may see an article he wants to read.
Read, right, forget about you. Okay. And then you take your gloves off. Okay. And you say, here, have the gloves. Anyway, so.
Pretty color.
Okay, so, what we're gonna have you do, okay, a couple of you can play around with the bag, one of you can get the silverware out, and, you can just try tossing it at your friend for a couple of times, just for the experience, just to see how the other person reacts. Even though you know all this information, most of you will react the same way, okay? Because, again, it's just human nature, okay? And that's what you have to work with here. Okay, it's human nature. Okay, so, Who wants to start with this? And as Mark did, the towel can be done in many same techniques as a belt. Wrap their arm, get around behind them, wrap it around their neck. Okay? And it's, how do you say, there's a certain amount of creativity that's required, but if you start practicing with some of these things, as they were tossing spoons out one at a time, and he was going into their
Cookie Jujitsu?
with the cookie jitsu.
Yeah.
I mean, if you got a whole, you know, like a quick box of like 500 plastic spoons, and you got that box, just one at a time, or two at a time. Keep the person busy until they get bored and then leave. No, but or throw out 500. What?
Whole box of Oreos?
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, we can make them into shirt.
Sure, time.
Oreo shirt.
Oreo shirt, a new shape, which wasn't, yeah. But anyway, just so you realize, you know, yeah, cookies can make good weapons. I mean, it's a distraction. It's not really going to hurt the person, but they don't want to get hit in the head by a chocolate chip cookie. Okay, it isn't cool. Okay, who had the question? Yes.
I was just going to mention a comment. I was mentioning to Michael that, I don't know, how many of you have seen the Bourne Ultimatum? The last one? One of my favorite scenes actually.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes with the choreography is that when they have this fight scene in it, and they do exactly what we've been practicing here. They integrate, the fight starts in the living room, he integrates a book to block it with and smack him and then he uses a lamp. It transforms into the bathroom, remember they start picking random crap up in the bathroom and chokes the ducks with towel. Yeah, so I mean, it's I like watching that because it kind of is a nice example of the principles.
Well, and in the first one, as well, where he goes into the office and picks the pen, stabs guy with it 5 or 6 times.
Now, if I may add this, Mark and I were talking about this the other day. Kung Fu Panda actually had a fight sequence in it that was very, teaches a very powerful and valuable lesson about nerve technique in Jiu-Jitsu. That's that they don't work very well on fat people. With a straight face.
Nerve techniques also tend not to work on thin people, very thin people. Because they don't have a lot of, for nerve techniques to work well, you're relying a lot on feel and muscle structure. And thin people, because they have a thinner layer of muscle, it's not as distinctive, and so it's harder to find those spots. Heavier people may just have too much mass in the area, put it politely, for you to get to any nerves effectively. Okay. Except maybe fingertips or stuff that's face is still easily accessible. Fingertips are, extremities are, but body, you might as well forget it. One of the things that Mark brought up is a flashlight. Who did the article for Coco? Yeah, with the flashlight. You can what's that brand that's Maglights are probably one. If you can get a 10-cell Maglite, no, I'm only kidding.
The 3AA.
The 3AA is good.
Any size is good.
Any size.
You can figure out something to do with any size. From the pen light up to the.
Yeah, I actually have a 3-cell. I think it uses the D batteries in my car. Those are all perfectly legal. And you keep them in the house by your bed. It's perfectly legal.
In fact, there are actually biker gangs that carry mag lights on their belts. And they used to carry ball peen hammers too, because those are legal. But
So those are little,
well, yes.
The flashlight, you can say, that's in case my headlights burn out. But they are a tremendously effective weapon. Okay, if you're going to hold a mag light, not hold it like this. That you have, this is giveaway. This is the flat light end. Okay, this is a giveaway if the person doesn't know what to do with the flashlight. Get it up here. Okay, Because right now, you've got a great club, you've got a great blocking device, you can aim it, okay?
And if you're at night in your house, that flash of light in their face, if you have the button.
Yeah, you're up, you're
Temporary
up high.
blind them if
Yeah.
it's dark.
But to be done correctly, it has to be kept on the right shoulder.
Yeah, I'm left-handed.
That's why I said it's temporary. Sorry.
Left is always right.
Left is the best, left is always right. Okay.
What happened to your thumbs?
Okay. Yeah. And see, left-handed people have an advantage in the martial arts, but we've been through that.
Oh, yeah.
So, okay, what else can I say about stuff that's around the house?
Something else I just came to mind regarding the Kubutan, I thought it might be worth sharing. I love the Kubutan, Yawara, whatever you want to call it. I think it's my preferred weapon of self-defense. I made an oak one. I was just going out of Home Depot and buying a piece of oak doweling and cutting off the length I wanted. The rest of it I use as a heavy pointer when I'm teaching. If the little pointer is not working, I pull out the big dowel, and all of a sudden I have their attention. It's pretty interesting. But regardless, when it's a homemade oak, it's not something that's store-bought with a pointy end or something that has a store-bought look. Then people assume, they'll say, oh, you have trouble losing your keys a lot? I say, yeah, I never lose them anymore. Because I got this big stick
Right.
next to it. Also, it looks like something I got out of a gas station.
Yeah.
Gas station. So I use that one sometimes, you know.
The toilet key.
There you go, yeah. It kind of diffuses the whole
The
concept.
expression on your face is priceless.
Just think, with years of training.
This is what you have to look forward to.
Like sliding down the rabbit hole.
When I started teaching, okay, I taught up for Bakersfield High School District and tremendously wealthy school district. Anything a teacher wanted, all they had to do was ask for.
I went there.
And
Must have been a different.
this was back in the 60s. Okay, I was there for 1 year. And then I came back because I wanted to finish my master's degree. But they had all these maps, and so they gave me, and the windows were made with this plastic that doesn't break, whatever it was. And the map hook thing was made out of oak. And I would turn this thing around and said, well, after I broke 2 windows, because you hit those things just right, they will shatter. Okay. The principal took away my map hook. Literally came in, you can't have this anymore, this is getting too expensive. And I had to find some other way to get the map stacked. But yeah, you know, oak is a heavy wood. I have, years ago I saw a guy that was making handles and joes out of ironwood.
I have purple heart.
Yeah, I think that's what I have now. I have a wood, it's very heavy. You get hit with that, you know you've been hit, okay? And I think that for the handle was like $80 or $90 for this little 3-foot piece of wood.
Yeah, because they have to blow through innumerable blades trying to
Right.
lay it down the sides.
Right. So, but you know, if you get into weapons, you try and get the best you can get for the money, because you know it's going to make things work better. Okay, what else do I need to cover on this particular topic? Not much, nothing else, other than, you know, check out around the house, check in your car. There are things you can keep those little, Mark has a little flashlight on the keychain, okay? Makes a great Kubutan. There are a lot of things you can carry, ballpoint pens. There are other things you can put on keychains that look pretty innocuous, that are fairly effective weapons. The general rule you want to follow, though, is don't come up with anything that generally could be used or easily could be used against you. Okay? Because, like I said, if you go after someone with a knife and you don't know how to use a knife and you're not inclined to cut someone and you're only holding it to threaten them, if they get that away from you, you are in really deep trouble. Okay? someone grabbed your flashlight. Surprisingly, they're not, most people aren't gonna know what to do with a flashlight. It's a flashlight, you wind up. Okay. It doesn't occur to them. Right. Pardon?
They'll just take the big club swing at you.
They'll take a
number
big
one.
club swing at you, which is a really stupid attack.
It is the number one attack,
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
that overhead swing.
Yeah. That's why that's why it's held this way. Okay, real simple. Cross, okay? Okay, down into the ribs. I mean, you can have all sorts of fun from this grip.
Home run.
Home run. Yeah. Right across the base of the jaw. Fracture the upper jaw. But anyway, so we're going to give you a break for about 5 minutes. We're going to come back, and then Mr. Chris tie things together with the first part of today. And I will have to get the toys for tomorrow morning. And tomorrow morning we'll be doing applying empty hand to weapons. Okay? So, and I apologize for that change, but I realized once I got here I didn't have what I needed, and I really didn't want to do a lousy job with that, because it's an important concept that we have to deal with in Budoshin Jujitsu. Okay, so I'm going to give you a break for about 5 minutes. Everybody else, I'm going to get all this stuff cleaned up. What? What?
Oh, I was gonna.
Let's just bow off and we'll give you a break until 2:30. Excuse me. Let's do the lunch. Okay. That sub is causing trouble. Okay. It's trying to surface. Okay, Kyosuke. Right. Have a nice break. Kids will follow you, your students will follow what you do, not what you say. Okay. And so you should, in your e-bag someplace, you should have your own first aid kit. Okay? Whether it be in a Ziploc bag, in a metal box, if you're in a backpacking, into a ditty bag. They still have ditty bags? The little bags that.
Yes, sir, they still do.
They still have ditty bags,
Yep,
okay?
yep.
Where you put your ditties in there. But, you know, in some sort of container, okay? And really all you should have are maybe 3 or 4 Band-Aids, some squares of gauze. The gauze are not necessarily for owies, but to clean things off. Maybe a really small bottle of hydrogen peroxide.
Alcohol wipes.
Alcohol wipes alcohol kills body cells. So that's one reason it burns. Hydrogen peroxide will do the same thing for the most part, but it doesn't kill body cells.
And it's not toxic.
And it's not toxic. Okay. And an antibiotic, you know, a really small tube of antibiotic, some
Smelling salt.
smelling salt, but you see, you can't give it to yourself.
Oh, you're talking your personal
Your own
first aid.
personal, and we don't even carry smelling salts, which is a little thing of ammonia, which is very cool.
You can burn the nasal passages.
What?
Certain smelling salts will even burn the nasal passages.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Yeah, that's one of the problems it has. Plus it wipes out the whole dojo. You should probably have nail clippers. Surprisingly, to clip your nails, or there's also for clipping little pieces of skin, or if you have a collapsible pair of scissors, which usually you will find more likely in backpacking stores than at a drugstore. You want to have some athletic wrapping tape, not the elastic type, it's an adhesive tape, and that goes over the Band-Aids because Band-Aids do come off quite easily. Well, this was actually a good Band-Aid. I put it on this morning. I don't know if any of you have been through LA Unified Schools, and every kid knew that the moment you put a Band-Aid on, it would fall off. I mean, they got the cheapest Band-Aids on the planet. So in any case, if you put a Band-Aid on, you want it to stay on, so you have to wrap it with the wrapping tape. And there's some other things you can get in there if you want to, but you really don't need that much for your personal first aid kit in Jiu-Jitsu. Anything else, either the dojo should have, okay, or it should require medical care, intervention, okay? If you have a broken finger, do not expect your sensei to put a brace on it and say, now you're gonna be okay. And as a sensei, it is really important that you do not diagnose injuries. Say, oh, you have a sprained wrist. All you can do, even when you fill out an accident report, you say injured their wrist or injured their finger, because you're not qualified to make those kinds of remarks. Okay, it's kind of like the auto accident. You don't say things you're not sure. Okay, what do we have? We have that pain relieving cleansing wipes. Okay, really cool. We have the all-important sterile disposable gloves. Okay, this is in case if someone is really bleeding. Okay, or you're giving them body fluids. You have cold compresses. Puppies, they get cold. You have to be very careful with some of these because some of them, and I've seen it happen, you can actually end up with frostbite from these things. And I had one kid many years ago at junior high where the nurse sent them down, we put it on the kid's injury, and by the time the paramedics got there, because it had no warning on the bag, they actually had to treat the kid's back of his hand for frostbite, which is a lot more serious than a sprained wrist. So in any case, but that, what else do we keep in here? We tend to have gauze, okay? I don't know this is more gauze tape.
That's the self-adhering gauze tape?
What?
That's the self-adhering
Yeah,
gauze tape.
You can get it a lot cheaper in a hardware store if you ask for vet wrap. You can get that stuff for $1.50 a roll.
What's it called?
Vet wrap.
Vet wrap.
Wrapping the leg.
Also, if you know of a place that does horse supplies,
Yes.
you can get this stuff a lot cheaper. Okay. You don't have to go to your drugstore, Rite Aid, or what have you, and buy this stuff. Okay. We've got the adhesive wrapping tape, that's like pre-roll. We have hydrogen peroxide, good sized bottle in case we have to clean stuff off the mat. Okay. We actually have a triangle bandage here. Okay. All of you should know how to do a sling with a person's D-belt, or 2 D-belts if you're an instructor, or that's either the double sling is for dislocated shoulder, or this shoulder injury or broken collarbone. Okay, you want a double sling, which is one this way, the other one going across, which keeps it close in, because that relieves a lot of discomfort. And that's my phone. I'll call it back. We have other gauze, but anyway, and this is really all we have. And this is really all we need. If it's anything beyond this, we'll call paramedics. Because it's not worth, you really, as an instructor, you don't want to really get into doing anything heavy. I know YMCA's have certain policies, okay? Parks Department here, their only request is whatever we do, we notify them immediately or as soon as we can. Yes?
I find just for the comfort of the individual you're working with and also for the term of bloodborne pathogens, the best thing when you're dealing any time with blood is instead of sitting there and saying, well, here, let me slap this on your wound, take it out and say, here, why don't you put it on your wound? Especially if it's anything around the face that might compromise the airway. They're always going to know when it's clear. It's their fluids, they know if they're pressing too hard or not.
Right. Yeah. As long as they're conscious and competent, okay, CNC. You let them do as much of their own care as you can. Let me see what this is.
Be sure you get that on video.
Yeah, that was.
Okay, it's my daughter again. I'll do that. Anyway, what else? But that's essentially what you should have. You should know where a phone is. You should know how to get to 911. Never be embarrassed to call 911. If I have a student that becomes unconscious for any reason, the first thing that happens is I have someone call 911. And if they come around fairly fast, fantastic. 911 will still show up, it'll still run the person through the whole 9 yards.
And they're not bored that day.
They're not what?
They're not bored that day, they're happy to come.
Yeah, and this is all for your protection anyway, okay? Because if you don't call 911 right away, if something does happen, then you're in deep trouble, okay? And it's better, what do they say, better safe than sorry?
It's good not to be the highest level person in charge of that news. If
Right.
you pass that bad news off to them,
Yeah.
it's their problem, not yours.
Yeah, and so you do, oh, also forgot, scissors. Okay, don't worry about slicing through a student's uniform. You can all wear clothes if you need to get to something or see what an injury is, okay? If they have an injury on their leg and they can't move their leg, you don't need to have them remove their pant, you just slice up, okay? You can always, they probably won't ask you to, but you can always go out and buy them a new pair of pants or, because we don't want to, if it's a serious injury, you don't want to move it. Okay, and that's why the scissors are there. You need to cut clothing, if you have to. Anyway, so I'm going to stop now, return the class over to, where'd Chris go? Chris, okay, and they're all yours, and I'm going to go see, find out what my daughter is panicking about. Okay, very good.
Okay, let's everybody stand up. I've been playing a lot with how your sense of distance and timing can be used both defensively and offensively. And so I want to play with a couple of concepts and introduce you to a couple of, I guess, knowings would be the right word, that will help you improve your sense of distance and timing and how you can use those creatively in both attack and defense. So, having told you what I'm going to tell you, now we're going to just play with something for a moment. So, I want you to pair up, and in fact, Corey, if I could use you for a minute, just 3 walking punches.
3 what?
3 walking punches. I just want you to, yeah, there we go. And I want you to just back away from them a couple of times, just to get a baseline of what that's like. No blocking, just evasion. So let's start with that.
I have to sit down.
Talking.
If I fully extend my arm, I'm punching that, I'm doing Smurf Yeah, I'm fine now.
Turns on to reach you.
I heard it's difficult not to put your hands up.
It's also difficult to just back up.
To just back up, exactly. Because backing up will put you on your heels, there's that tendency to lean back, throws your kamae off, the whole gamut. Did anybody notice anything else that I just didn't cover?
Get out of the way.
Side to side, yeah.
You can't move
The
it.
type of body movement out of the way works only if you're going really fast and you're punching fast.
Okay, yeah, okay. Now, how can we use that to our advantage? Okay, so let's play first with a concept that, well, it's called a lot of different things in Japanese, but I like to call it that critical distance line. You know where that line is, that somebody's got to do something. Okay, so does everybody know where that line is?
It's a cultural line, by the way.
What's a cultural line? That's true.
It's about 18 inches to 24 for a person in the United States, but a person in Iran, it's about 14 to 16 inches.
Yeah, so
And if you back up, they'll follow the field.
They'll come in.
Space.
All right, so let's narrow that down just a little bit more. What's the distance at which you know they can hit you?
The length of their arm.
And it changes, doesn't it, depending on the person. So with your same partner, what I'd like you to play with is, let's have the person B, give an A and a B. Let's have person B just standing there, and person A will approach until they think that they're in range, just in range. Okay? And then I want person
For a
B
kick?
for a kick or in range. Kick, punch, whatever. And then C, check. Have person B check and see if you are indeed in range or not. Okay? So let's play with that for a second.
Still get frontsiness.
And feel free. How do you know?
1.3 meters.
Practice. Right.
I think a lot of it is based on the opposite person's physiology. And also, I would even say, like in a real street situation, how they're positioned, whether they got one part of them ahead of you, or if they're facing you like this, or all
Yeah.
that stuff.
Yeah, there's a certain feel, there's a certain intent that you can. But in particular, I want to focus on how do you know? Like over here with, I'm sorry, was it Antonio? Yeah. What I was looking for here was, where do you start to get that kind of hinky feeling in your body? Like, no, I'm a little too close here. I know something's got to happen. Either I've got to back up or I got to get in. I can't just stand here right at the edge. Okay? So does everybody have kind of a feeling? I mean, I know you guys probably do, but everybody got kind of a feeling about how that is? Yeah?
We were noticing that it's different for both of us.
Yes, of course.
Where he's got longer arms, longer legs. But we also noticed that if I'm standing like this, he gets nervous closer than if I'm standing like this.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. There's a different intent to it.
Mhm.
And also you changed your range.
Right. We figured out that he feels safe from a punch. No, he feels unsafe at about a meter.
Yeah.
And he feels safe at about 1.3 meters.
So there's that certain kind of squishy zone where, yeah, okay, I got a little buffer, just a little bit of buffer here. Okay, so why is this important? Because when that distance closes, that's when my body's going to tell me that something's got to happen, and it's a question of when it's got to happen. Okay, so let's play with that defensively for a moment, and let's play with angling too. Can I borrow you for a minute, Thomas? So if he's going to punch, and I'm going to stand just out of range, right there, he knows he can hit me, okay? So if I stand outside of range and I come inside of range, now he can hit me, I'm going to back away from that, okay? So let's play with that just for a second. When person B standing ready to punch, I'm going to come in and wait for that punch to there, and when you think you can hit me, there we go. And then I want to back out. Okay? So in other words, I'm going to bait him to punch him. Okay? Let's try it. I think I'm trying to trigger it. If he's ready to go, and I want him to shoot with that, I'm going to bait that so I can move around. Okay? So I'm going to come in and go, bait that shot. Okay? I want to throw his timing off. Because if he's ready, he's got a certain, you can see the rhythm gap. I'm going to bait that shot and come around it. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. So pick a side. Say, I want him to throw with his left. There it is. Okay? Because now you're all a little more clear on where that line is, especially if somebody's keyed up and ready to go. I want that shot to come. So I dictated the timing, not him. Okay? Does that make sense? I'm dictating the timing. If he's ready to go, all right, make that, there it is, bye-bye. See? And I'm in. All right? Yes.
Are you, is a subsequent part of this where you would actually mess up with his distance by closing too fast, you put it?
We'll get there. You're ahead of the class. Thank you. So, play both sides. Have your partner be ready to go. Pick which side you want him to throw and get in there and make him throw it. Okay? And pass it. Pass it. Okay? Now, if I want that right hand to shoot, there's a, I'm going to turn this a little bit so Michael can kind of get it to the camera, maybe face me here a little bit. There's a gap between his hands. There's a hole right here that I can get in on. But not with both hands here. I actually have to get him to commit with one side or the other. Doesn't really matter. But if I can get him to commit with that one, so you can throw whenever you're ready. Okay? I'm going to take it this way and then just come right in. And here I am, inside. Okay? Why is this nice? Because there's lots more attack line here. center line attacks are a little more direct. So I'm gonna come here and make him shoot whenever he's ready, because he can hit me from there.
Really come in, I'm waiting for you 2 more inches.
So,
Yeah.
can you
That
see
range,
from,
yeah.
from this particular range how it's kind of curvilinear? There's no, you can't really see it, can you?
Your body's in the way.
You
There's
didn't
no
get
way.
the 3D camera.
So- Tell you what, the rest of you will come around, stand behind me, so you can see in between his hands. We're gonna do this a little slower, okay?
I might be able to do this.
Tim, that's the range. You, right there. Let's get back.
So, I'm gonna come in for that shot, and then move, step in, commit, boom. Right on the line, there it is, and I'm around it, okay? Does everybody see how that's happening?
So you're moving to the left to trigger the punch, and then to the right to get inside.
Now, can everybody see? Let's do this really slow, okay? Watch very closely between his hands. Here comes the punch, there's the hold, step in. Okay? Punch, step in. All right? Now I'm over-exaggerating this wildly, but I want you to get the concept, okay? Doesn't have to, you don't put your hands up or anything. And let's have your partner throw it about half speed so you don't get your block knocked off. But that's where I want you to end up, right there. Okay? Is that clear? Can you see this?
And you want Tori's to keep her hands down.
If you feel more comfortable putting them up, then great. But
This
is something
if I only did the things I was comfortable with, I would be not in jujitsu.
okay, well then, put them behind your back. Okay, so it's a left to get the punch to come, slide into the right. Okay. Any questions? No? Okay, great. Let's do it.
Your opponent or Uki has their, what is this, left foot forward, or
Yeah.
you left foot forward, does that make the footwork a little bit easier, or does it not matter?
Really, it just. Well, it's what you're comfortable with, absolutely. And the more you practice with this, the more it won't make any difference at all. That's the thing. I want you to get the basic concept, because obviously this can be you can spend weeks on this kind of stuff. And I want you to get the basic concept and then take it away and play with it for a while. New toy and play with it for a while. So we're doing kind of two things here. One is we're messing with their sense of distance, and then at the same time, we're messing with their timing. I come in with a certain timing, I like to think about this as kind of tempo, right? It's kind of a musical beat, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We have a certain tempo or rhythm that people like to come in at. And if I can see that, pretty much, you had a great example because you were bouncing. Okay, there's his tempo. Now if I can half beat that, or if I can double tempo that, I can syncopate it, yes, however you want to do a rumba with it, or however you want to think about it. But whenever I can see what the timing is and change it, I get to make all the rules now. It's now me who's on the offensive, even if I'm playing a defensive role. Does that make sense? Okay? So we've gone in, we've gone out. Now let's come back to, or rather let's angle around to how we get in, okay? And how we get out. You've got these nice long limbs and we can play a little bit. So let's do just one single punch, okay? Most of the time when we back up, we're either taught to back,
Jabber.
give me a nice long shot just because it's easier to play with, okay? I'm backing up kind of in line. And I know that our teachers tell us all the time, or we tell our students all the time, get offline, get offline, get offline. But how, okay? How do I get offline in a way that's going to set me up for, how do I put this in a way that's going to make sense? How do I get offline in a way that puts me back in control of the tempo and the rhythm, okay? So let's start with just going to the outside of it. So I'm going to wait, as strange as this seems when he starts to throw my punch, and just sink down and then move away from it. Okay? I want to, because my first reaction is, ooh, there's a punch coming, leap out of the way. No, no, no. Wait, sink, move. Now what's got to happen if he throws again is he's got to retarget. He can't reach me. Okay? Now throw the second one. 1, 2.
This one first or?
Doesn't matter. See, can't even reach me with the second one unless he steps. So am I messing with his distancing? Yes. Okay. Well, so let's go like standard Street Fighter thing. So jab, cross. Okay. Jab. Well, maybe. Jab.
Not much there.
Step. Okay. Because I've changed the direction. If I just went backwards, boom, 99 degrees. So we're going to go down and away to the outside. And now that punch has got a lot farther to come. He's got to twist his body. It gives me that extra half a count to get there. Okay? So let's just try that.
He's really got to commit to get that.
He's really got to commit.
Yeah.
Why is that important?
Because he's off balance.
Because he's off balance. And even more importantly, who's dictating who's moving?
You're controlling his time.
I'm controlling his movement because I know where he's going to go now. He obviously wants to hit me in the head. So let me actually get my distancing back. Okay, here he comes. Whoop. Okay. Not quite. Does everybody see how that's happening? Everybody see the footwork? Okay. This footwork's really important because I guarantee this is what's going to happen. You're going to move your head. And then the other one's going to come across and you're going to be doomed. Okay? So sink and let yourself drift away. Can you? Alright? See if you can do that. Sorry.
I also noticed that you don't go back, you dodge 45.
Yes. That 45-degree angle
Getting
is
off
just
his planned line.
off his planned line. I love
So again,
45s.
I'm balancing him now.
Love 45s. They change things in a way that it's hard to, if you don't know what you're doing, recover from. Okay? I'm doing something else too. I'm making him commit. Okay? But okay, let's go back to even that tempo idea again. So, 1, 2, how many times did I move? Once. Who's got the advantage? I'm all set up, he's still throwing that second one. Let me show you why that works. Okay? But let's just start with down, away. Okay? That's it. A lot of stuff out here, so really ask questions, or if you don't understand, or it's not quite working for you, or partly what this will do is it kind of gets a little squishy sometimes because I'm closer than I'm used to being. I'm closer than I'm used to being. But the more that I can refine how much distance I have away from that person, the easier it is for me to either counterattack or nullify their attack. Okay? Just like I was showing here before, if I could usually get this from the jab cross idea. Jab, and then he comes in, boom. That hole we looked at before, where I baited this one, and then came in here, works in both directions. There, boom. Okay? So let me rephrase it in a different way, in more of a tempo way. He's got a 1-2 tempo, and I'm saying 1 and, because I'm already ready when he's throwing his second one. Does that make sense? Okay? So this does push people past their comfort zones. So if you need to, slow this down so that you can see that hole in their attack appearing. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Is everybody kind of seeing what I'm talking about there? Because once you can visualize that hole, you start to see it almost everywhere in an attack, in any series of attacks. Okay? So let's step up this idea a little bit more. Let's do 3 punches. Okay? So that first attack comes in, I'm going to get offline. That second one comes in, I'm going to roll back. You still can't get me. Now the third one comes in. Do you notice how I'm changing the angle on you every time? So what do you have to do?
I keep having to step to compensate and fall.
Retarget, 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 retarget. Because most of the time, if you just go backwards, I just keep coming. Okay? If I can change the angle and the timing on him, beep. Okay? Now I'm making this look kind of easy. Does this make sense to everybody? Does everybody see what I'm doing with my feet?
Could we see it again, please?
Sorry?
Could we see it again?
Of course, yeah. Let me make it even a little more clear. Everybody see this line down the middle here? He's going to be attacking, as most people do, down this forward line. So I'm going to bait that jab and then back away from it at 45. You can't get me. He's still on that line. Now he's way off it. So who's changed whose distance and timing? I have. By doing what?
Changing your angle.
Changing my angle. And
Tempo.
tempo. Okay? Yeah. Woo. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? Anybody follow that? Does everybody see what I did with my feet? I'm just doing successive 45-degree angles. So overdo it. Let's make it even easier. Overdo it. Slide away from it. As that second punch comes in, pull the other foot to the other one. As that third punch comes in, step it away. Works well, doesn't it? Okay? Questions? 45, 45, 45. Let them commit, then move. So do it slow enough so that you can get the rhythm of it. Let them commit, then move. Okay? Because if I do it on his tempo, I already got hit. Okay? So I come in and I let him dictate the tempo. Yeah. See how I get in trouble already? But if I dictate the tempo, okay, sure that. Yeah. Boom. And I'm ready all the time. Okay? Or not okay? All right, play with it. Thank you. A little bit. And so let me give you a variation on this, which works really well for people with long arms and works in a slightly different way for people with shorter arms. Okay? So I'm going to bait that attack again and slide out of the way of it. And then as he comes in, I gotta wait until that punch is committed. Okay? Because his brain, his targeting center says, it's right here. And if I move it while he's moving, before that attack is committed, his brain's going to do what? Retarget. Don't want to have that happen. Don't want heat-seeking missiles. I really don't want to get hit. It's not very much fun. Okay? So I'm going to come in and let him think that it's there, and then I slide out of the way. Does everybody see the slight variation in timing there? Bait it. There we go. Now bring it in.
Okay.
Boom. Okay? Wait. But I don't mean wait like just stand there as a block. Keep your body moving by letting your body sink into the next attack. Boom. Okay? Is that helpful?
Yes, that's fine. That actually was my urge, was to step out the other way.
Yes, okay. Now, for those of you who are working with, shall we say, those of less proportions.
You calling us runts again?
Well, if the shoe fits.
Multi-shoe.
All right. Let's do that same thing. Let's bait that attack, slide it, and as this one comes in, let's move around it to the inside, or the outside, as the case may be. Okay? Back and there. Okay? Everybody got that? So play with both if you want, but get that back and out of the way first. Okay? Okay? All right. Thank you. When those punches came in, okay, so we just drifted in and there were those punches and we just backed up. That's just no fun at all. Right? Now I'm telling him where he's going to punch me. Okay? Let's come in a little bit. So let's go with 3, and let's see how that feels at the end as opposed to at the beginning. Okay? Same technique we just used. Bait them, make them punch where you think they're going to be. 45 out, make them punch where you think they're going to be. 45 out. Okay? Remember who controls the timing. Who controls the timing? Right, okay, thank you. Instead of just debating. So at this point, you guys probably feel a little more confident with you're actually setting them up instead of the other way around. Yeah, you're seeing some nods. Yeah, it feels a little bit more like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter really what they throw at me. I'm the person who's driving the bus. Yeah? Does it feel a little bit more like that? Okay, so can I use your choreography? So let's just set it up so that they just run into it. All right? So let's bait that punch. And he's going to come around again. Boom. Okay? Nice solid shot there. Did you see it coming?
No. It was subtle.
Yeah.
It was right inside my timing, right inside my range.
Exactly. Okay? Now, if we think about this from a timing perspective, I want you to think about coming in 1, 2, 3, because that's pretty much how it's going to happen. Boom. Where did I strike at?
The end of 2.
The end of 2, kind of 2 and 3. Because I already had his timing. 1, oh, there's 2, and here comes 3.
Yes.
Now, why does that work?
Because he isn't planning that. He's expecting the synchronization to continue.
He's expecting synchronization. I've thrown his timing off enough that I'm controlling it by my movement and my distancing on it, right? That gives me a lot of time to do pretty much whatever I want. You can put it in almost wherever you want. So let's do that one more time. So come in, I'll bait that punch. Boom. Okay? This is just, you know, you can punch, you can kick, you can throw, because I'm that half step ahead. Okay? So let's just start with, or rather, let's finish with. Right there. Okay? Put it right on the beam. The old knockout. Okay? Does everybody feel pretty confident about that one? Or at least you will in the next 5 minutes or so?
Half of us have been knocked out at the end of class, the other half won't.
Okay. That's pretty much okay. All right, let's play. Any questions about that? Comments, thoughts?
It took me right back to fundamentals of foot movement. As I was telling you earlier, when someone came in at me, I wasn't moving my feet properly. Let one of my legs straighten out, and I was completely owned. So it took me right back to the fundamentals and getting it right. It was good.
It was a good example for me. A year ago, I reread Miyamoto Musashi's book, The Five Rings. He talks about breaking the beat, you know, and the attack, and so that timing thing you were talking about was a nice, you know, I kind of understand now what he's talking about with that.
Yeah, this is this is not new stuff. And like I was saying here, you guys already know this, really. Maybe you guys are just kind of learning this idea, but I really wanted to bring it out, flush it up, be able to polish it, and make it really work for you in a more conscious way than, I don't really know what I'm doing, but it's kind of working anyway, so.
I'm looking forward to taking this back to my class because this visualizes it. Where I can say it, now I've got a way to visualize, help them visualize.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about. It's stuff that we do, but we never really thought about enough to really put it down to where we could explain what we were doing. And this helps us to either visualize it and kind of congeal it so you can explain it to somebody else. So it's a good exercise.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, that was all my intention.
Really getting two things out of this. One, more awareness of my footwork and focusing on my footwork because, you know, as I'm doing these drills, I'm thinking, well, some of them, because I'm just not used to moving in that direction as much, I'm leaning and not stepping. So if I slow down, I get a step, and as I work on that. But again, as I speed that up, it reminds me of another thing somebody introduced me to recently. He had me doing speed drills, and as I sped up, my breathing followed. And he said, that's your biggest weakness. You have such an internalized rhythm that your opponent can predict it, just as you were doing with the drill. And boy, that just reminds me as we're doing it. He's like, see, he's got a rhythm.
And we all have to hold hands and sing.
Yeah. So, any other questions, anything else anybody wants to say?
Any questions on anything that occurred today?
Something we did in the dojo that, in our karate dojo, when we were working on these concepts, was to actually put tape on the floor in the shape of a V. And then have them follow the Vs. Just another, if you talk about a visual, that might be another teaching tool back at your dojo.
Yeah, when I teach people this, a lot of times I'll just have them stand on a line and have the person attack in that line so they can really visualize where they are in accordance with that attack line. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And if you give us at some point, a written, sure, we can incorporate it maybe into the
Master series.
the Masters, whatever it's called, Black Belt Seminar Series or whatnot. Sure, this is well done. So it's a good way of visualizing, Mark said, visualizing a concept that we keep trying to teach our students, we just don't get it. Okay, so I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Okay, tomorrow, we'll all be here bright and early again, and tomorrow we are doing applying empty hand techniques to weapons. That will be the first thing in the morning, and I'll have my toys with me. Then we have 10:30, we have Nagi footwork Jiu-Jitsu versus Judo with Marc Tucker, Sensei Tucker. He's going to be here doing that. Then we have lunch, and we have, Mark is going to have the entire afternoon for submissions and groundwork. Okay. And I guarantee you, by the time you leave, you will be sore. Not because of Mark, okay? It's because when you go down to the ground, you tend to use an entirely different set of muscles.
And that's part of the point
Right.
of the seminar tomorrow, is to show that you move differently and you actually exert more energy
Yes.
on the ground than you do standing up.
Yes, it's tremendously physically, I don't want to say exhausting, but it's put out,
Engaging.
it's engaging, you put out a lot more energy and effort.